Hey there guys, and welcome to Naked Reality, a podcast all about stripping bare mental health. We're going to hear from people all over the world sharing their stories, their experiences and their journeys with what they've been through in their life. But now it's time to get naked with our next guest. During all of our episodes in this podcast, we do cover sensitive topics. So if you or anyone you know is suffering with anything that we discuss, please listen to the end of the episodes where we can find contact details for us or support lines to help you with what you are going through. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and we are on once again for Naked Reality with another guest here today in the studio. I love these live one-to-one chats. It's always good to be in the studio. As much as I love Zoom and talking to people, it's great to be face-to-face and really feel someone's energy and really understand the love and the compassion that they have for the stories they want to share. So today's guest, Mr. Joel Stoyanis, he's a transformative men's coach. So great to have you here, Joel, mate. Pleasure to welcome you into the studio, into my house, into my life, and to hear your story, brother. So welcome.
It's weird being naked on a podcast, but this is an open-minded podcast, so it's a pleasure to be here.
We're not naked, by the way. We may get naked. It's getting pretty hot in here, but you know. But yeah, man, it's like I think I first saw some of your stuff. Like I work a lot with Maddie Bruce, who's obviously you work with as well, with the Men's Work Collective, and I saw your face on the website there, helping along with men's work and things like that. And it was Lockie from that does also part of the Men's Work Collective's got his own podcast. I know you were on there the other day as well. He put me in touch with you, and it's great to welcome you here and learn a little bit about. To be honest with you, man, like in terms of like the stories and stuff, I really enjoy not knowing much about somebody when they first come on the podcast, because then it's like the stories that come out are like the shocking for me. I'm feeling those emotions for the first time, so I really love the fact that I don't really know much about you, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it's great. It's going to be great to see what comes up, and to welcome you and to listen and to share, mate.
Yeah, in men's groups, I always say that if you've said something and afterwards you're like, shit, did I say that? That's a good sign that you're being authentic and it's not something you've prefabricated and just like let it spit out. So yeah. I love the fact that we've created an opportunity for things just to flow out, for it to be what it is, because then, there's not a script. And I feel like we live life on a script way too often, and then we're kind of just creating this identity and just repeating that identity instead of just showing up as we are and letting it be what it is. So I like that we're bringing that into this space today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll be honest with you, we have had a quick chat to get to know each other. He's not literally just stepped into the studio. But yes, what made you? Because you were telling me before off air you were a PT. Yep. And that's something that we share in common. I was a PT for about 8 years, I think. I mean, longer back in the day, but regardless, it doesn't really matter. What got you into stepping from a transition from being a PT into doing like men's work and the work you do now?
Yeah, so I'll tell a little bit about why I got into personal training if you want.
Yeah, definitely.
I was 19, and the level of awareness I was at the time, I was so terrible with women and I was really lonely, and I didn't understand that there's such a thing as just connection and getting to know people genuinely. I was like, if I get a sexier body, maybe then girls will like me. And my sister was going to the gym at the time, and that's what got me into the gym. And that was the first time I actually found something I was passionate about. So cool. I kind of lived like fairly flaccidly through life, I think you could say, like not really going and getting anything. I was just kind of bumbling my way through life. But when I found the gym, I fell in love with that. So I had an immense amount of passion for that. And I feel like everything in life happens for a reason. And that's what led me to where I am now. But when I was doing personal training, although I love the fitness side so much, I naturally found connecting with people to be the most amazing part of it. And I realized it doesn't matter if I have the ultimate blueprint for changing someone's body. If their mind space wasn't right and their heart space wasn't right and they didn't have the desire, they wouldn't although health is really important, you can't get someone healthy if you can't change their state of being. Yeah. And that made me realize if I actually want to create change, and that's something that I did want to create, like I'm not running around like I want to save the world, it just feels good to me. then I need to go more deeply into helping people on that level. And through my own journey as well, I realized health didn't save me and change me. So, just because I looked good on the outside, I hadn't changed on the inside. I looked incredible. I was like 85 kilos, like I call it dick skin lean, like super lean, and still I didn't have confidence. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I've done everything right, I'm healthy, but my internal state, my identity and how I feel hasn't changed. And that made me realize, okay, there's more to this than just lifting weights and looking good and feeling good in that respect. So,
yeah, I think that comes out a lot in the industry. You see, and this is men and women alike, people go into the gym, they, with an idea, it's like, I want to lose weight because I want to feel better about myself, whether it's to become more attractive or to just look better in the mirror or to fit into clothes that you've grown out of, literally. And people come in, they may stick to it, and if they do, maybe they get great results. But then once the challenge is over, or once this idea of what they wanted to get to is over, this is where they go back to old habits and old ways, right? And slip in. And I think it's something that's missing a lot from the personal training and fitness industry is this personal thing. There's a personal trainer, but it's the trainer is focused on a lot, the training, the coaching, but the personal side of things is missing. Like, if this person comes into the gym and they want to lose weight, that's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with it. But there's something deeper beyond that. What is the real reason you want to lose weight? What is the real reason you want to change your physique? And it may not even be necessarily lose weight, maybe to put on weight, for depending on what your body type is like. But regardless of the fact, there's something deeper beyond there, like you obviously experienced for yourself, right?
Yeah. And to even speak on top of that, obviously they want something deeper. However, there's also so many deeper things that are preventing them from getting what they want, like self-sabotage. They think it's just from low willpower, but it may be from, an emotional pattern that's been playing out from early childhood that they're not aware of anymore. And then so many people want to change, and then they think that they suck and they don't have willpower, but there are deeper forces at play. And one of the reasons I moved out of personal training is because, and this was just a personal choice, I could have either gone into like life coaching / personal training, where to make it more quote unquote personal, I focused on their state of being in their mind to understand and unpack those behaviors so they can actually create deep change. Do I do that, or do I just move into a new space? But I feel like, just having 60 minutes with someone, even 1, 2, 3 times a week in the gym is not enough. There needs to be specific time where you get into what's going on in all of that space outside of the gym, and then what's driving all of that behavior as well. There's so much to change. It's not just about going to the gym and changing your eating, but most people don't understand that, and because of that lack of understanding, they expect things to be easier as well. And then because it's really scary poking into the heavier stuff, like maybe you're self-sabotaging because of shame or unworthiness or these behaviors you don't want to even admit to your coach. Yeah. How can we create change if it's not normal to talk about that stuff as well? So there's so many empty spots in that industry, and I like to think, like, instead of being the fitness industry, it should change to like maybe the health industry or just the well-being industry, where it's normal that if you're going to change your body, you should be focusing on your mind and your emotions and everything, because nothing should be separated. However, we tend to compartmentalize everything in this Western world because that's just how we do, even in movement, we know that like if your hips aren't moving well, your back's going to hurt. But then some people just look at the back. Like if you go to a surgeon, he'll just scan your back. That way of thinking is what damages people in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, and I guess there's going to be a lot of people hearing this that will, feel some of this stuff that you're saying. Like it'll hit a target, because even I can hold my hand up and say I've been into the gym so many times to improve my own body in the past, because I've wanted something from the gym. Like I've wanted an end result, whether it's to lose weight, put on more muscles, build my biceps, whatever. It's always been that same drive and that same feeling is all there. Maybe the result is a little bit, the physical result's a little bit different, but it wasn't until I personally started to understand my own thing about what exercise was to me and what it was, that I've been really able to channel it into something that's not what I thought it was going to be. Like I was always big into my soccer, my football growing up, and it was all about performance. Got to get better, got to get faster, got to get quicker, got to get stronger. To the point where now, at the age of retirement from football. I wish I'd have known this a lot, when I was a lot younger. But it's about it's exercise is not life. The result that you get from exercise is not life. It's a part of life. And that feeling that you're going to the gym for is just part of the deeper reason you want exercise in your life, and you want to stay fit, you want to look this way. And through many conversations over years in the industry myself, most of the time it boils down to some form of confidence. They want some form of strength to get from it, not physically, but internally. And this is why people go and come back, go and come back, go and come back, abuse the bodies, come back, abuse again, come back, abuse and abuse, and it's a cycling thing. But there's a point where you get to give up almost, because they're tired of this whirlwind that they put themselves through. But I'm pretty sure you've understood this through some of the blokes that you've worked with. This is just a metaphor for how they treat themselves in life.
Yeah.
It's not just what they do for themselves at the gym. This same cycle will be repeated and repeated and repeated through relationships, through marriage, through kids at work, how they speak to themselves. And it's, once we can understand this as personal trainers, and personal trainers can understand this, it will create such a much more beautiful environment for people to be able to go to a gym and not feel like, it's just a chase to knock off the next 10 kilos. It's about filling and finding part of yourself within life and real fulfillment. And I think it's, you've really started to touch on things, but like myself, I've moved away from the industry. You've done the same, is because it's a very, very difficult industry to help people find that. Because there's a lot more that lies underneath there. There's a lot of ego, a lot of pain, a lot of negativity that's thrown into that industry, where it's like it needs to be done separately. And then you can find your relationship with the gym. And it's, I think it's beautiful with some of the stuff that we've been speaking about already, that you're able to help men with, in terms of this area, in terms of, finding vulnerability. It's powerful, man.
Yeah, I feel like a really poignant question that never gets asked enough with anything in life is like, how does this serve the rest of my life? And most people haven't even asked themselves the question of like, what is success to me, or what is satisfaction to me, or what is like a delicious life look like to me? So if you don't even have that reference point, which most people don't have, because they've been sold a narrative that success looks like this, and if I chase this form of success and get this in the same way that everyone else is doing it, then maybe I'll feel loved or feel worthy. So most people aren't even living their own story. They're living a story that's been fed to them, first of all, and then they aren't asking themselves the question, how does this piece fit the rest of the jigsaw of my life?
Yeah.
And if you do ask yourself that question, then if, let's say, for example, you're a parent, then working out for me will allow me to have the energy to be present with my family, to blow off the stress that I accumulate from having children, to actually allow me to still feel sexual and connected to my partner when things aren't going that well. There needs to be context. Without context, what's the real reason? And people rely on this temporary motivation of this extrinsic thing to get them somewhere, because they haven't connected it to their life, and they're not even connected enough to themselves to know how it pieces into their life. So if I'm trying to get someone to connect to that, but they're not even willing to look deeply enough to have that conversation with themselves, and a lot of time people aren't, because it's scary to have that conversation with yourself, because by admitting that you haven't known what's true to you, you actually have to admit that you've been living a life that's untrue to you, and that fucking hurts a lot of the time, right? And then when we're in an industry where people are promising a result with really, like, I don't want to throw labels out, but F45, quick challenge, they starve people, they train them really intensely, it's all about the result. And if people are providing that result, then why would someone want to come to someone that's trying to ask them a deep question when they can just band-aid? And we live in a world where people want quick fixes and band-aids. I want to be able to take a pill to get my dick hard because I don't realize I have sexual shame. I want to lose weight really quickly and just starve myself and not actually care about the hormones in my body. We live in this very quick fix, but not actually thinking as to why things are going on, because everything is a symptom of something deeper. And if you're chasing symptoms, you're chasing your own tail, because that symptom is going to present somewhere else, or we're just going to become numb to it. And that's the biggest problem with that industry. I don't think it's intentionally that way. It's just people aren't educated enough to understand that. And this kind of applies to all of life because these aren't conversations that are being had enough.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree with you more about the whole Band-Aid situation. I mean, it's something I'm finding myself more and more and more, and with my own personal journey, I looked on my phone this morning. I think I'm 798 days sober. So I gave up alcohol. Thanks for the high five, bro. And look, it wasn't because I was an alcoholic. This wasn't, it wasn't a desperate need. It was more of an inquisitive thing of like, what would life be without alcohol? So I removed alcohol. And then all of a sudden, this desire to eat has just fucking risen up. And I've put on lots and lots of weight. Not masses. It's not been out of control. But it's where I've looked at myself in the mirror and said, come on, dude, you can do better. And then, so, start to go on a diet. Put myself on a diet. Bam! All of a sudden, where's this porn problem come from? And, it's starting to realize, it's like, whoa. I've not had what I thought was a problem with alcohol, but it was something I wanted to address in my life. To now realizing I've got food as a dependency thing, and then when food's not available, it's porn. So the more you dig deep, the more you start to remove, the more you realize that your body's grabbing for something to cope. And it's, I guess, by putting yourself, like you said, through these challenges, these quick fix challenges, that is in itself the same thing as alcohol, porn, avoidance. Facebook.
It's avoidance.
Yeah, it's something extrinsic, like you said, to put yourself through that makes you feel good for a certain amount of time.
Good.
Enough to make you feel like you can exist without it until you start to fall and you start to go back down that slope. And then you go, okay, well, I need other things. Like I need to go back to my food, or I need to go back to my alcohol, or the old patterns that were there in the first place. And it's like, I know like we said, we spoke a little bit off the air, but it obviously seems like there's a lot of personal experience in this for you.
Yep.
Like, where did this journey start out for yourself in terms of, you're a personal trainer, you're putting yourself through this. Like, where was the switch into like, man, I need to figure something more about me? What was that for you?
Yeah, so I'll backpedal a little bit. So before I studied personal training, I studied mechanical engineering. So I spent 4 years. Yeah, you're a mechanical engineer as well. Yeah, awesome, love that. There are no coincidences, guys. Both engineers and in the fitness space, and now we're doing this thing. So, he's copied me. Nah, he's got the podcast for him. So yeah, back then I had never made a massive decision for myself. I kind of avoided life, played video games, was extremely insecure. Like, and when I say play video games, closer, further. Yeah, okay. We're just adjusting the mic, guys.
There we go.
There we go. And I would spend literally 10 hours a day playing video games, terribly low self-esteem. I would feel anxious talking like to someone in a shop or like a checkout chick. That's how low self-esteem I was. And I'd always allow my parents to make decisions for me because that's just how I'd operated my whole life. And when it got to the end of my engineering degree, finally I had to face reality because I had to make a decision. When I was in engineering, I could just play games all day, get like the government student allowance, eat shitty food, and that was okay. But as soon as my degree finished, all of a sudden, okay, I have to make a decision. And I was fortunate enough to hurt myself at the time. And it sounds weird saying that, but when I hurt my shoulder, I was training and a collar fell off my dumbbell. I had some Olympic dumbbells, so they had like those lockjaw collars on them, and the plates were slipping off and falling towards my face. And I was moving one dumbbell away from my face. Meanwhile, I forgot about my other arm, and I kind of went into this fucked up position, and I tore some stuff in my shoulder, so I couldn't work that summer. So I couldn't work, and for whatever reason, I started reading personal development. And that's what lit my brain on fire. I realized I read 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, and they talked about paradigms, and you can actually change the way that you see the world, and that can influence your decisions. So that was the first moment where I'm like, oh, things can change. I was given the taste of possibility, and that opened the doors for me. And I did I think they call it I forget what the name of it's called, the eulogy exercise, where you're imagining that you're dead and everyone's there speaking about your life. Someone from your personal life, romantic life, professional life. And when it got to professional life, I had my first, what I think, inspired moment where I started to write down life coach, personal trainer. I just wrote down all this, felt like it came from a deep part of me. And that was what started me on this journey of, like, as soon as that happened, I told my parents, look, I'm not going to study, I'm not going to be an engineer. I'm going to go do personal training, even though it was really scary and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I didn't have a bone of responsibility in my body. I'd just been a freeloader my whole life. But that feeling felt so true to me that I had to choose that over everything else in my life. And I feel like a lot of people haven't felt that. That's why, my message is for us to get connected, because without that, I would probably still be floating. So introspection is so powerful. Anyway, fast forward a few years, most of the personal development I had consumed was very much in the business and positivity space. And that is where the problem lied for me. They're like, you can think yourself to be better, but that's where a lot of rationalization and repression of emotion can come from. Because like through mental self-talk of like, yeah, I got this. There's actually so many feelings, heavier feelings of anxiousness, overwhelm, insecurity, fatigue, and everything that I was just denying within myself because I'd been told from the books to be positive. And life is not just positive. Life has both sides of things. But I didn't realize that because these books had helped me come from insecure and anxious and disconnected to at least some form of progress, because now I thought I was happy, right? But it was this positivity trap. Anyway, I got to the point where with my past relationship, who was the love of my life at the time, I got to a point, we had an incredible relationship, but I got to a point where I was feeling really distant from her. I was doing like what was my dream job at the time, and I didn't have the fire to do that. I just felt numb and empty, and we ended up having to go on a month-long break because I didn't know what I felt. I didn't know what felt right anymore, and that's what dropped me into learning about men's work. And I did some sessions with a coach called shadow work sessions, and in psychological terms, your shadow is anything that you repress, deny, or kind of bury within yourself, anything you're unaware of. Your shadow's behind you. So if there's a light cast in front of you and all the things you want to see, you don't want to see all the things behind you. And because I'd learned so much about positivity, I wanted to be this perfect guy. I was denying all those parts of myself, and that's where so many of my emotions were. Most of my emotions were, because when we tend to numb one emotion, you tend to numb all emotions. And because I had this big basement full of shit that I didn't want to look at, I couldn't really feel joy or connection or lust or passion or any of those things anymore. So I had to take myself from a journey of being numb to feeling again. And that's what's made me so passionate about helping guys go from numb to feeling again. So if you want to ask more about that process, we can talk about that, or we can go wherever you want. But yeah man, I mean, I guess it's like that journey for yourself is, I guess, really interesting to understand, because it's like, I understand a lot about what you do with the men's work, but it's that drive of where it comes from. This is something I've found for myself, and speaking to many other coaches, the one commonality that we all seem to have is that we've had this pain come up for us, this pain where we felt life isn't right. Something is not working for me here. I'm not really sure what it is, but that doesn't matter. It's just like, I want to try and figure out more. And I guess, like, you see, I mean, Tony Robbins is the big one. He's the the grand master of life coaches, as they would say, and he's probably the one that's most known by people that don't really understand what personal development, men's work, all this sort of stuff really is. But it's, I mean, even being in this space, I don't know anything about him. I don't know anything about his journey or where it is, and it makes me kind of disconnected from what he does. But like, what is it that you were like, okay, now I'm at this stage where something's not quite right. I'm going through this little bit of trouble with my girlfriend. I feel like I've got this closet full of stuff. What was the jumping off point, the switch where it was like, I've got to stop running from these shadows. I've got to stop running from this thing that seems to be holding me down. Yep. I don't know why, but I've been blessed to have a big set of balls. So, and I think we all need to have courage, because if you don't have courage and you get the opportunity presented to you, become aware of something, then you get to make a choice. Do I face this or do I bury it? So I'm very lucky that once I become aware of something, I face it. So those problems were manifesting in my life because I was unaware of what was playing out. But the moment that shit hit the fan and there was a separation and I saw a coach, once it was presented to me, I'm like, I either have the choice of remaining in pain or growing. Why would I choose to remain in pain? I don't care how painful it's going to be to move through this, because I know it's going to be better on the other side to have moved these heavy emotions out of my body, to genuinely reconnect to myself so I can love my partner. Or I can just have a numb existence with my partner. And once we actually just look objectively at the choice we have, it's a no-brainer to me. I'm always going to take the path that feels true to me, even if it fucking hurts, because it feels true to me. And so often we have this aversion to pain because we're so coddled in this society. Like, if we lived in nature, pain is a part of life. We have fans regulating the temperature for us. We get food from a packet. We used to have to hunt and kill, and like life expectancy was low. So pain was just a part of life, and we've taken ourselves so far away from pain that we think pain is bad. But pain drives us into deeper consciousness. Pain is a call for us to become more aware of things. If you stub your toe, it's like, bro, be aware of where you're putting your fucking toes, okay? If you break your arm, it's like, look after your arm. But then when we have emotional pain, we want to look the other way. And that's not how it's designed. So when I feel pain now, and I don't know why I've been blessed to have such courage, but when I'm like, I need to look at that more deeply. Because ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is numbness and disconnection.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty well said, man. I don't think I could put it better. Why do you think it is that, obviously, there's a lot of technology and things that are out of control that caused us as human beings to sort of move away from pain, especially like emotional pain. What do you think this drive to not address this is in people?
Yeah, I see. I don't think anyone could intentionally answer this, but I'd like to throw this answer out there. A while ago, and there's actually a book called The Spiral that goes through different states of consciousness, and when they're talking about like selfish, and selfish isn't bad, but we have to be selfish at times, like if we're not being selfish, we have poor boundaries and we don't have a sense of self, so who do we have to share with the world? So selfishness is really powerful, but selfish emotions are like pride and desire of self, and then when we move past those, we have reason, and then when we move past reason and logic, we have love, and we're starting to get into those more transcendent emotions. I like to say that science and reason is the new religion. So we're so obsessed with rational thought and logic that the less tangible things such as energy and emotion were kind of, mysticism used to be the biggest thing in the world, and we've moved past that and kind of thrown that away now, and logic is the new thing in the world. And because logic needs to be seen and measured and needs to be calculated, because emotions aren't in that realm, they almost are seen as irrational. And if we talk about this in terms of masculine and feminine energies, the whole planet's been so imbalanced in this masculine energy of doing, logic, objectivity, do, not feeling, which feminine is more feeling, flow, and intuition. And we've kind of lost touch with that part of humanity collectively, or at least in Western cultures. And you can see that, in the burning of the witches, there was these women who had, they were in touch with their intuition and with nature and stuff. And we think that's the devil and we burn it. So if we look at the world as just a progression of that way of thinking of like, if we can't see it, then, or it's going to get in our way, right? Emotions get in our way. We want to produce things. There's this kind of whole way of thinking around that. As reason and logic is all. And if you even think about the Industrial Revolution, right? The schooling system was built to produce workers for the Industrial Revolution. Do you want to teach them to feel and connect to themselves so they can create their own destiny? Or do you want to create a system that makes them into autonomous robots where they're really good at recalling information and being told what to do by authority? So our whole society's kind of been sculpted since then to now off a lot of these big movements, and therefore emotions kind of misunderstood and they get in the way.
Yeah, man, it's you nailed it in the fact that like I think we as people, we want to see what we're going to create. We want to know or have some form of picture. And
it makes no sense because it's in the future.
I know.
I want to see it before it's here. I'm like, bro, it's not here yet. It's like putting on a movie and like I want to look at all the spoilers. But then what's the point? You've spoiled it.
I know.
We actually love the plot twists the most. But then our rational mind's like, I want to know. It's so silly. It's so silly.
Well, I think it's the reason why like marketing and advertising, the way it's done today, is so powerful. And both of us having this fitness industry background, you can see it, quite clearly through the way people and the way gyms and things advertise is a picture of the hottest of hot women and a picture of the hottest of hot dudes. And they're together and it's like, do this 12-week challenge and you could potentially look like us. And it's like, oh, I've seen the light. And it's like, bro, you've seen a picture on the side of a wall of something that takes an immense amount of dedication. Not the sort of dedication you're going to put in this 12-week challenge. It requires insane amounts of dedication to get bodies like that. But we don't want to tell you that. We want to tell you that you think you can be like that. And that draws people in, right? It draws people into this idea. So this is just one example. let's say you see it in every single other example of the physical world. This is the idea of life is now, well, if I don't see it, what's the point of going after it? Because, well, how do I even know what I'm going to get? If I go down this path of challenging my emotions, maybe I'm going to have a good cry. What the fuck's that going to do? And it's like, well, actually, it's probably going to do a lot more than you think it is. It's just, you've got to trust. And I did a podcast the other day on, I don't think it was about trust, but we ended up speaking it may have been about trust. Anyway, we ended up spending a lot of time talking about trust. And it's, people, we don't trust in ourselves that it's not about the outcome. That we as human beings, we have the potential to literally achieve anything that we want to achieve. We just try and put this ridiculous tangible outcome on it. So, and for the most part, it's about money. If I'm going to do this, what am I going to get from it? What is it worth my while? It's a common saying. Why is it worth my while? Oh, because, potentially you could become a millionaire. Cool, I'm going to do it. Okay, why don't you do this thing? What am I going to get from it? I don't know what you're going to get from it. You'll only know that by going through it. And it's like, well, I'm not going to bother doing that because there's nothing tangible. And it's like, this. I know this, because we, as coaches, as men doing this and being in this space, this is something we put ourselves through. When something emotional comes up, this isn't just something to go, fuck this, I'm just going to put it to one side. I'm a man, I don't need to deal with my emotions. Men don't do that. This is a warning sign. This is an alarm. It's
feedback.
It's a gift. It's a present. Yeah. It's whatever you want to think it is. But it's a message from your body telling you that, hey, dude, let's try and figure what this is.
Pay some attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if we figure out what it is, maybe it's going to help us. Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
But it's probably going to help us.
Yeah.
And 99 times out of 100, it helps us.
Yep.
When sometimes it's not as easy as I'm saying it is. There's a lot of crying involved. There's a lot of emotions involved. And it sometimes can be very challenging. Yep. But once you've got to the end of that challenge, you can breathe. You feel lighter. And not like in a physical form of lighter. You just feel like you've got this sense of freedom about you. That shadow, that weight, whatever it is that's been holding you down is now gone. And your mind opens up to a space where you can actually create. You can start to feel love. You can feel connection, not just to the world around you, but to everything that's going on inside you.
You're alive, right?
That's fucking incredible.
Yep.
And it's again, we go into the physical world. We can chase this feeling. It's available to us. It's available to us through Facebook. It's available through us through shopping, alcohol, food, pornography, cocaine, you name it. There's ways to get this feeling, but it's very short-lived.
Yeah, I'd love to challenge that. Yeah, I'd love to challenge that. If you finish your...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a very big difference between pleasure and satisfaction. Not saying pleasure doesn't have a purpose in life, but everything that Joey just listed off is to do with dopamine, is to do with reward circuitry. And when we're in a state of emotional pain and we're not facing stuff that we haven't dealt with within us, our easiest fix, because we can't actually reach deep satisfaction unless we're actually feeling deeply emotionally, because that's where joy and gratitude and love comes from. We seek pleasure because it's the closest thing to satisfaction. So we think we're living a good life, but the way I work with guys, I take all their band-aids away. Now, how do you feel? Because this is how you actually feel without all your numbing mechanisms, without your self-medication. And if you actually want to deeply feel delicious, we need to strip that shit away, face what's beneath, because once you've faced it, only then can you deeply feel joy and love. And that is a very scary thing, because people have built most of their life unconsciously around how to create a way of living to not feel. And then they're like, well, I'm okay with where I'm at. I'm like, yeah, you think that's okay because you haven't felt what's on the other side of that. And on the other side of that is a very different feeling. And, if we want to put it into practical terms with men, I'm having the best sex I've ever had in my life. I used to be fearful of dancing. A lot of guys will think this is silly, but I can actually enjoy moving my body. I get pleasure from the simplest things now. And it's a far deeper pleasure because I can feel way more. And I used to have this resistance around saying that I'm a sensitive person because sensitivity is thrown in with weakness, right? He's sensitive, but I've reframed it as like, if you have a really well calibrated machine, it's very sensitive, right? You know, if you have a set of scales and it measures to 0.00001, it's a really good set of scales. Now that I'm more emotionally sensitive and more in tune with my feelings, I'm just way more in tune with myself.
Yeah.
I don't need to be punched in the face by life to be aware that I'm depressed. I'm like, okay, something's feeling off. I can be aware of that. So although it seems, you know, silly at first to move into pain, you're actually just moving into yourself, and you're already in pain because you've been neglecting yourself. And that's what people need to see. It's not even some leap of faith. It's just the cold, hard facts. Like, and if you want me to prove that to you, take away your numbing mechanisms, then tell me how you feel without your dopamine hits. And then, you know, will you need dopamine hits if you're deeply satisfied? Because what feels better, deep satisfaction, love, or dopamine? And I find a lot of people don't need their addictions anymore when they're actually living a life that feels true to them, but they've never felt what that feels like because no one's shown them that. And they're living into everyone else's stories, and they're emotionally phobic because the whole world's emotionally phobic.
Yeah, I think this shows up in a lot in, you know, the way you see traditional lives being lived out. Like, I'll go back to my hometown in England, is Manchester. It's a very wet place. You know, it's raining most of the year. It's not very sunny. It's, you know, it has its beautiful parts, its beautiful buildings, amazing nature. Like, there's a lot of beautiful things in Manchester. But because of the weather, there is a specific way that people live. Most of people live their lives, which is work Monday to Friday, get absolutely fucking wrecked at the weekend, and then back at it Monday morning. And it's probably, I'm pretty sure it's very similar over here. But you know, I've been here 8 years, and most of it's been living in a gym, so I've not really seen that side of things. But you know, this is what you can see is they go through their week, which is their life, and whatever happens during this week, whether it's work problems, family problems, you know, even things to celebrate, don't get celebrated, don't get dealt with. Let's just, fucking Friday's coming around, let's just go to the pub and
hang on till Friday, just
have
hang
a
on
few
till
beers.
Friday. Yeah,
exactly. And this is where you see it a lot, is people use this dopamine hit, this feeling of alcohol, you know, the night's not good enough until we've had a few lines of Charlie, you know, let's go to the bathroom and let's fucking pump it up, get real on it, let's go for a couple of days. And this is the feeling that people are chasing. They really innately, deeply want a feeling like this within themselves, that they can.
That's the only way to get it.
Yeah, but they want to sit and they want to be by themselves and be able to have that feeling. But throughout the way they're living their life, this is the only way that they can seem to create it, because they're not dealing with, hey, someone called you an asshole while you were driving the other week. How does that make you feel? He's a wanker, forget about it. You know, it's like
brush it under the rug.
Yeah,
rationalization.
Exactly.
Suppression.
It's a tiny thing, but it's a tiny thing on top of the lots of tiny things that have happened to you for God knows how many years.
And some big things too.
Yeah,
that you
exactly.
haven't dealt with, you know, some things in childhood that you may not even be aware of their effects, because that's just normal. That was how my family operated. That's how my parents were. But when we look back, there's a lot more there than we'd like to see as well. So you have all of that stuff that you don't even realize, and then you have the rug with shit constantly being brushed under it too. Yeah, you know, so it gets big. It's a big basement. We got big basements.
It is a massive basement, man. Like, where do you think for you, like, you first started to connect with that basement full of shadows or stuff that you've been putting away, and what kind of came up for you?
Yeah, so when I found, because my ego was so, like, because I like to see myself as intelligent, and I built a personality around I need intelligent people to be able to support me. So I didn't seek help just from the men I had in my life, because I'm like, how is he supposed to help me? You know, I created this story. All the men in my life had never shared emotions with me and been vulnerable. So I didn't feel like I had the safety to be the first to share with them, because I didn't know where it would go and if I'd be rejected. And I was never really given that. Not to blame my father. I love my father a lot. But he never gave me that either, because he was never given that. So there's this whole culture of vulnerability not existing. But when I went through my break with my partner and I found this Men's Work podcast, she ironically sent it to me. And the first one was Tim Morrison's episode that I listened to. So shout out to Tim Morrison. Thank you, Tim.
Big shout out. He's coming on the show soon as well.
Yeah, that's going to be massive. That's exciting. I'm excited for that. But I contacted a coach called Rainier Wild, and he was super smart but super spiritual, and that ticked the boxes for me. I can trust this guy. You know, we don't really need that, and that's why I'm telling this story. anyone can support you if you give them the chance to, but I happen to need a coach to be able to do it at that time. Yeah. Anyway, when he taught me about the shadow and how we naturally repress things, and there's something called projection. So when we deny something within ourselves, we project it outwardly onto other people. And at the time, I never got angry. And I developed this whole nice guy syndrome. So I had terrible boundaries. I was a people pleaser and I'd do everything for everyone else. And I didn't really understand that I was draining myself. And I realized that when other people were angry, I would judge the shit out of them. I would think they're being hurtful. I'd think they're being irrational. I had all these beliefs around what anger was, because that was within my shadow, because I never accessed my own anger, and they were my belief systems around anger. So once he taught me about that, I actually really started to realize I had a lot of anger and frustration within myself that I hadn't dealt with. And I had terrible boundaries in my relationship that I hadn't dealt with, and also all this unconscious resentment for my partner because I wasn't being honest with her, because I was so out of touch with that feeling because I thought that feeling was wrong. So that's one example of it with anger. And no emotions are good or bad, they all serve a purpose. If anger is healthily integrated, if you think about, and when I say integrated, we become disintegrated. Me over here, anger over there. Yeah. Two parts, okay? When we become reintegrated, we've reconnected to that part of ourselves. And a lot of people have lost their joy and spontaneity. A lot of people have lost their sexuality. It depends what they've been through and what they think is right or wrong based on the culture they've grown up in. But for me, I thought anger was bad because I'd seen it displayed poorly. Yeah. Therefore, I'm like, anger bad? Well, if something's bad, I don't want to be bad. Therefore, I bury it in the shadows. And that's kind of how our psyche does it. Yeah. That's right, that's wrong. But things are a lot more gray than that. And, anger is a healthy emotion. If there's two dogs play fighting and one goes a bit hard, the little dog's like, fuck off. Boundary in place. Yeah. After that, it's not angry anymore. And as humans, because we think anger is bad, when we've been crossed, and this was true for me, because I was out of touch with that, I had no response to be like, no. I didn't have my no, because anger is my boundary emotion. Yeah. So I just was living this wishy-washy life where I was being pulled around by everyone because I didn't have a sense of me, because I had no anger to protect me. But that was just one emotion. There was a lot of shame. There's a lot of shame that I hadn't faced around my sexuality, just around my sense of self. There's a lot of unworthiness. There's a lot of other emotions that, as I continued to do this work, came up. And through the years, because I used to be so insecure and felt so unworthy, I'd created this confident persona to cover up all those feelings. So instead of actually facing them and learning to love those parts of myself, I wanted to better myself so I didn't have to look at those parts of myself. Yeah. So we can go into the shadow as deep as you want, but there were so many feelings there that I didn't know how to face at the time. So I came up with tactics to try and move away from them instead of move into them. And this is what people do. Yeah. Like, okay, I feel shit about myself. I'm going to earn more money. No, why don't you actually think about why you feel shit about yourself and learn to love that part of yourself? And then if you still want to earn money, cool, but it's not coming from this need to move away from a pain that you don't want to face. Yeah. And this is how most people operate reactively. Like, say, for example, with you with food, and once we develop more consciousness, there'll be a feeling coming up. Instead of sitting in that feeling and realize, like, shit, I feel overwhelmed or whatever it is, like I need to give myself some space. And sometimes we just need to feel it. We don't even need to have an action or a result. We just need to feel ourselves and be with ourselves. Instead, we move to a behavior, a tactic to try and treat the thing, but the irony is we're moving away from the thing. So I realized so much of my life was built away from moving away from tactics. I've committed the last 2 years of my life to moving inwards, to actually reclaiming those parts of myself, so I'm not just this numb like plank of wood. Yeah. So it was deep and it was intense and it was scary, and I had to feel a lot of things, and there was a lot of emotions coming up. But now I feel the most whole I ever have, and now I have like the best relationship ever, and I'm living my dream job, and I couldn't do that if I didn't do that deep work. Guys, we have an interruption on the podcast.
I don't know why that's just...
We have technical...
There we go.
Alright, we're back, guys.
All of a sudden, the outro just started playing randomly.
He's trying to keep me off, guys. He doesn't know how to put his boundaries in, so he just pressed play on this other track.
That's not it at all, bro. I promise you that.
I feel hurt and not loved. All right.
So, how... I guess it's good to understand from a, because we like you said, we can go deep into it, but I don't think that's really doing the listeners justice. Yeah. I guess for the most part, like, how was that coming out in your natural world? Like, how was that coming out in your relationship at the time? Like, was it arguments? Was it, completely shutting yourself off from your partner at the time? What was that like?
Yeah, so like before I was getting in touch with it, there would be no arguments because I would agree with everything because I was out of touch with the fact that I wasn't agreeing. Okay, then the way that I like to describe like reclaiming my anger is like I'd been given this big heavy sword and I didn't know how to swing it. So like when I was first feeling it for the first times, instead of just healthily expressing a boundary, I'd be an asshole. I'm like, okay, I swung that sword wrong that time. All right, next time I'm going to try it like this. And I'd wouldn't actually vocalize my needs enough, and I'd swing it poorly. So it would come out sideways and in all these dodgy ways until I actually began to have a healthy response to it. So when we're first reclaiming an emotion, it's not going to be pretty, and we need to give ourselves permission for it to not be pretty, and we also need to let our loved ones know, this is what I'm going through. I'm trying to figure my anger out. I'm not trying to attack you. I have had this shit bottled down for 27, 30 years. Bear with me. Yeah. Okay? So that's the process I went through, and there was a lot of ups and downs, and it's still not the easiest thing, because I'm 30 now. 27 years of my life, I never felt the damn emotions. So it's still not just the way that I would like it to be. It's like that. But yeah, it can be very confronting, because now I'm feeling this feeling I've never felt before. And then I'm like, whoa, this is an intense feeling. How do I stay present with this? And by present, I mean like not lose control, not make it mean something in mind, just breathe and stay with it, and then still stay true to myself in that moment. And that just takes practice, because it's intense.
Yeah, I guess that's what's hard for a lot of people. Like, I've seen it in my own self in past relationships, and even in my current relationship, is that we start to feel these emotions, but what we don't realize that these emotions that are coming up are not current. They come from the past. They come from past experiences and past, whatever's happened for you. But because it's triggered by something in the now, like it could be triggered by your wife, it could be triggered by your kids or your husband, your partner, your boyfriend, girlfriend. It could be triggered by someone pulling out in front of you. Yep. This overwhelming feeling of emotion pops up because, let's say it's anger that's represented. This is like, okay, someone's pulled out in front of you and it's pissed you off, so you get angry. But you're not just getting angry about that. You're getting angry about every single time someone's pulled out in front of you.
You were already angry. If you're getting pissed off by that, you're already angry. You just needed something to trigger it.
Exactly. And I think this is really important for people to understand and to hear, that is, if you are feeling overwhelming feelings of emotion come up over the smallest of things, this is a sign for you that there's something more in there. There's something bigger going on. Like, it's so simple to get upset about something that your partner's done. This is probably one of the easiest ways that we're triggered as human beings, is by the people that we are closest to trigger us the most, because we have the deepest emotional connection with them, because we trust them, we love them, we care for them.
There's a lot of attachment there too, there's a lot of those unspoken expectations that come in as well. You love me, I love you. There's that stuff there too. Yeah,
exactly. And let's say you say, can you put the bins out? And you come back and you go to put something in the bin, and it's like, for fuck's sake, why the fuck is the bin still full? I asked for this to get done. And it's like, well, hold on, buddy. That's getting a bit angry there over a bin. Is that not a sign for you to possibly go, does this really reflect what the person, you've asked to change the bin is? But what it can also do is it brings on the next thought, which is like, do they even fucking listen to me? Do they even fucking care?
Yep.
If they don't care about this, maybe they don't give a fuck about me. What the fuck am I? I feel like shit. My partner doesn't listen to me. I'm in a job that's not going great at the moment. Some cunt pulls out at me on the road, and it's like, it just seems to happen. All this shit just seems to be happening to me. Like, what the fuck is my life all about? And if you break that down, it's 4 tiny little things that have happened. The bin, someone pulling out on you, things might not be going quite right at work, and I can't remember what the other one was, that maybe not being listened to. 4 tiny things. But you can see, through playing out that scenario, how the emotion has just risen to like, why am I even here? And it starts to make you question, like, who am I? What am I doing? What am I doing with my life? And this does not mean, and this is one thing that I see personally, is people want to make radical changes. It's like, let's get a divorce, let's go backpacking, let's completely mix things up, let's throw away my career, my job, whatever I'm doing, to try and find something different about myself. Whereas it doesn't need that. It needs a smallest of small things, which is for you, first off, to just trust that this emotion is representing you as a person. And that if you can believe that and trust in that, then you can start on this journey to start to understand you a little bit more. But if you're starting to blame and you're starting to force everything is not your fault, everything is something else that's going on outside of me, this is a clear sign that something's not right. Because we can change as human beings. It fucking drives me up the wall when people say, oh, well, they'll never change. They're always going to stay the same way. It's just who they are.
That's just who I am.
And it's just
love me as I am, even though I'm an asshole and I don't give a fuck. You know, I'm like, okay, cool, yeah.
And it's bullshit.
Yeah, no responsibility.
Oh, it's actually not bullshit. It's real. That person that you're probably talking to can change. They're just not ready to.
They don't understand. Yeah.
But that's okay too. People don't have to be forced to change. This trust has to be when you're ready for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm from listening to you so far, I can start to understand seems to be the sort of stuff that you go through with guys in your men's group, right? Talk us through a little bit about that process. About obviously you've got this angry man, this emotional man that's cursing the world. He comes to you like what's the sort of stuff that you help with and deal with in that perspective?
Yeah, I think we can use a bit about your example to kind of nut into things. First of all, the reason education is such a big part of my course, because let's say you've been given a power drill, but no one's taught you how to use it. You might drill a hole in your leg, or drill a hole in someone else, and this is what it's like. It's like giving an old person a phone. If they don't know how the operating system works, they're not going to know how to utilize the phone. This is how most people are with their minds and their emotions. So we live in a society where we're not taught how our mind works. We're not taught how our emotions work. And then all of our current problems are a reflection of that. So why I use education, I'm like, this is how your mind works. This is how your emotions work. That in itself is so powerful, because they're like, oh, no shit. People aren't stupid. They just haven't been given the operating system and the manual.
Yeah.
So I give guys the manual through education. So let's say, for example, with that anger coming up, the first key with anything is we develop more awareness and consciousness. Because if you're not aware of something and you're not conscious of it, and just for people listening at home, consciousness is not some spiritual term. It's just becoming more conscious of things, more aware of things. Because there's so many unconscious processes happening in how we show up in the world, because our brain can't make choices moment by moment. So it does a lot of things without thought. Yeah. So we could be an arsehole without thought, or get angry without thought, or make assumptions without thought. Once we become more aware of those processes, then we have a chance to change and take ownership. So getting them to understand what's going on. So let's say we know where anger is generated from. In that case, there was a boundary crossed. You did have an agreement that they didn't put the bins out. So that is an opportunity for you to, okay, noted, I'll say something next time. And that way you can actually enforce a boundary within your relationship. But when there's something outside of our control and we're getting angry at it, does it serve any purpose at all? Because there are so many things outside of our control, but because we like to have this sense of control, then we're trying to control them. So the things that you have control enforce power over, and understand what that's trying to tell you. The things that you're getting emotional over and you don't have control over, you need to learn that actually serves no purpose and let that go. Yeah. And it sounds so easy just to tell people to let things go. And people think, oh, that it has to be harder than that. Once you start practicing it, it's not. It just takes time and effort and practice. So generating awareness and then helping them understand what messages are trying to tell them, and then giving them tools and processes to unpack things. It's the whole process. And everything that I teach is just an opportunity for a guy to understand more about themselves. Yeah. And once they understand, they have the choice. And once they have a choice, I give them a tool and they make the choice. So it doesn't have to be complicated. Yeah. And a lot of people think it needs to be. And I also like to give people personal responsibility. I can't hold their hand. It's not up to me to tell them what to do. I point things out to them for them. I give them the ways to navigate that. And then I'm like, now it's up to you whether you want to or not. But if they don't want to change, like you said, with the person who's not ready, it's not up to me to try to make them ready. Yeah. And as a coach, I've had to learn to let go of the result. I just offer the best authentic advice I can, the most love that I can. And then it's up to them whether they're ready to take that or not. And we need to apply this to all of our relationships, full stop. Can we love people as they are forever? Is a really powerful question. Can we love our partner as she is in this moment, not her potential? Can I love myself, not my potential? Because we may never change. We likely will if we love ourselves, because our nature is to change. But especially as a coach, when we love people as they are, that in itself helps them grow the most. So is that enough about the process? Just giving them some understanding, making them aware. And sometimes that's like, bro, you're doing this. Come on, bro. Or sometimes that's like, why? Yeah. And they ask themselves why. And they're like, okay, actually, I was trying to earn love through this thing. And then once we get to the bottom of it, we can actually solve the underlying thing, not the superficial thing. So generally, I just help guys get deeper awareness of the underlying mechanisms, their thought processes, their emotions, predominantly the stories they tell themselves, this identity they have about themselves that they think they need to adhere to because they always have. And once they become aware of all that, they're like, now I get to choose.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess the reason I asked the question is like it's even the story that I was telling before, it's not my story, it's just something that I made up.
Yeah.
But I could feel the anxiety start to build up, and it's, I guess, feeling those emotions myself is like, when that comes up, it's and you realize that something different or something needs to change. It's like admitting to yourself that there's a different part of you exists that you've never ever spoken to or dealt with before, and that in itself is scary as fuck.
Yeah.
And it's the reason I asked the question is so it's for blokes and for women alike as well, is that it's not a very abrasive process that you have to go through.
No.
It's nice and gentle. It's soft because you are dealing with something that's completely unknown to you, but also known, which is very, very strange. It's a challenge to think that, whoa, what's all this internal stuff? I've never dealt with stuff this way before. Why is all this coming up? And the reason I asked is to hope that people can see that there's places like this where they can feel safe, where they can, start to learn and grow and understand what this feeling actually is. Because you brought up something earlier that rings true to me. It was I spoke about it in my first ever keynote speech. I've heard Jay Shetty speak about it. I've heard Prince Ia rap about it. Is this lack of education about emotions when we're any age during school? It's we go to school, we play, we write, we learn numbers. And from then on, it's how can I mold this child to be a good worker?
And if the kid's angry, they're punished. And they're seen as naughty. And they're seen as a shit kid. And they're not given love. They're seen as a disturbance.
Yeah.
If someone's sad, we give them a lollipop. We're already enforcing those mechanisms then.
Yeah. And it's... We wonder why when we get to this stage where we've had this like awakening where it's like, oh fuck, I'm getting angry about the bins, or I'm getting angry, or I'm getting upset over the smallest thing. Why what is this? Why have no one ever taught me about this, or I've never learned this? And it's not your parents' fault, or it's not even your parents' responsibility. It's not, it's not your fault. It's not anybody's fault around you. It's just that in this Western world that we grow up in...
That's the way it is, right? Yeah.
It is the way it is. From a very, very young age, we're taught to think. We're taught to use our minds. Whether that's to create a genius, whether it's to put you into an office or to create a job for you. It's not about that. It's about the fact it's only about the mind. Nobody teaches you about what is it your heart does for you apart from just beat and pump your blood around. What the fuck is intuition?
Yeah.
Because that sounds like bullshit.
Yeah.
When people talk about it in later life, it's like, well, it sounds like something off Star Wars or some sci-fi bullshit. But it's real fucking stuff. Again, like you were making movements with your body. Like nobody teaches you how to move apart from sport.
Yeah.
Nobody teaches you how to dance and just live in your body and feel alive with making noises and just random movements because it just fucking feels good.
Yeah.
And we wonder why we get to this stage. It's beautiful to be able to have people like yourself, like that hold these spaces for people that can open up this space. Like, it must give you some satisfaction, man. It must give you, there must be a lot of love in what you do.
Yeah, well, I see, let's put it this way. The more suppressed someone is, the less of their essence is shining through. the less of themselves is shining through. And when I say suppressed, like we literally, when we're talking about movement and expression, we literally create muscular tension within our body to hold the emotions in our body that we never dealt with. So that's why guys are so fucking stiff. We're literally contracted. We lose flexibility, right? We lose a sense of self in our mind because we have this rigid identity of who we think we should be. And when I'm pulling away these layers, I actually get to see the guy beneath all the bullshit. Yeah. And I get to see the light in his eyes, and I actually get to feel his connection, because I felt what he felt prior and I can feel him now. And I know that may sound intangible, but you can tell when someone's present and when they're connected to their emotions. You can feel that. Yeah. And really, at the end of the day, when we're on our deathbed, we care about our connection with others, you know? So we talk about intuition being so intangible, but it's not that intangible. It's just because we've valued the mind so much that we think it is. Like, if I was to ask you, why do you love your partner? You could come up with all these reasons, but that's just your rationalization. But beneath that, you love her and you can't explain that, you know? And this applies to all things. I love that song because it gave you a feeling. As you were listening to it, you weren't like, yeah, I love the BPM of this. None of that was happening. You were just feeling it. And that's your heart or your emotional body, your emotions just speaking to you. And then for some reason, we think, you know, there is no such thing as intuition when it's so fucking obvious, but then we try and rationalize everything to make sense of something that can't be rationalized. Feeling, it's like trying to hear a color is like trying to talk about an emotion. They're two different layers of life. One is felt in the body, one is processed in the mind. So to try to rationalize one, it's like trying to describe flavors of coffee. It's like, oh, it has an oaky note, but you still can't really describe it because it has something so unique. You're just trying to put words to it, and that's what people do. They for some reason devalue what's going on in our body, which is where we experience everything, and then they just try and explain it with their minds. It's like, and then when we're talking about the purpose of emotions, right? If sadness didn't exist, how would you know if something's shit? You know, if you go to a job and you hate it, you're meant to feel sad because you hate it. Yeah. And then we're like, my emotions are getting in the way. No, bro, you're sad because you fucking hate your job. It's not in the way. You're like, oh, I don't know why I feel off. Maybe listen to it and it will be really apparent why you feel off, you know? So although we see intuition as this really intangible thing, it shouldn't be seen that way. And if we actually use our fucking common sense, you know, two engineers here, we wouldn't have become the most evolved and most dominant species on the planet if our emotions didn't serve us, because we haven't had language for a long time, but we still became the most dominant social creatures in the hunters because of our really developed social brains and emotional centers. So how did we become so dominant? It was through that system, and now we've thrown it away, and we wonder why, you know, 40% of people are obese in America and everyone's on these meds and everything. It's because we've actually forgotten our genius. It's not an intangible thing. You can look at the brain and I can show you the emotional centers of your brain. It's not, you know, yes, we can say it's the heart. Why does one kid like yellow and one kid like green? That's above our pay grade. We don't have to understand why, it just is. So let's let go of trying to explain the unexplainable and just embrace that that's the way it is. Why did your dog pick you and love you? We don't fucking know. So why bother trying to ask ourselves those questions and try and prove it, and then we can't prove it, therefore it's not real? I see it. You can see it. We all experience it. Stop trying to prove the unprovable and just embrace the truth.
Yeah. That is a very beautiful way of looking at things, man. That is really insightful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But obviously, you know, like, intelligence exists for a reason. We also need our intelligence, right? We also need our brain, you know. It's like, I think this is what's beautiful about your journey is like you've gone from a very, very intellectual existence in terms of engineering where you have to be 90% brain all the time. Everything's analytical, everything's numbers, everything's calculations, to a point where you know you've got this emotional body in you that you feel like you need to address. And it doesn't mean that you have to pay attention to one or the other, right? You don't just have to be, okay, well, you know,
everything is feelings now.
I think this is what's portrayed really badly in movies and TV shows, is that when someone goes on a spiritual quest, they turn into a 70s hippie.
I hate it.
And everybody looks down on them and thinks they're weird. Whereas it's not like that at all. Yeah. It's like, if you're an engineer out here listening to this now and you're feeling stuck, like, I had a call with a guy who's in the oil and gas industry recently, and I had a good chat to him, and he's 100% the stereotypical person that we're talking about here. Ultimately stuck in his success, all about work. Life is about work. And to make himself feel something, it's hard drugs, alcohol. An incredibly successful human being, incredibly successful in his job. But one of the big sticking points that I got from him was that he felt if he let his emotions come out and he started to deal with this, he would start to fail. And I think this is, it's probably a common thing, right? Yeah. Is that, there is a deep desire for a lot of people to want to challenge this and want to go through it. But this intellectual power is this idea that if I do that, then my world will come crumbling down and I won't be what I am now.
I just want to say, says who? You can't... Why is your hypothetical future of failure any more true than my hypothetical future that it could succeed? They're both unknowns. So really the only answer to all of that for you logical people is you don't fucking know. So stop holding on to either of them and just commit to the process. That's the bottom line. Because right. you don't have some crystal ball in your mind. You're just taking all of your beliefs and meanings from past experiences, and then creating what you think your future will be based off stuff that you've already experienced. That's all that the mind does. From my current understanding of emotions, I think I'm going to turn to a crazy hippie, or from my current understanding of my numbing mechanisms, it's not going to get any better. Bro, you don't know. Embrace that you don't know, then learn. But the moment that we think we know the future, you're just creating a hypothetical positive or negative that's not true. So get out of your fucking future and get here right now and do the work. Do you know what I mean? And listen to other people's stories. How many other people have done the work and they feel fucking incredible? So it's only your own past bullshit and your fears that you're projecting forwards. But it's not true. And that's why, in my coaching, sometimes I'm really nice. Sometimes I'm like, bro, you're full of shit. How do you know that that's going to happen? You don't. So stop fucking talking about it and let's do the work.
You see that come up so much, man.
He's like, what about this and that? I'm like, shut the fuck up, man. It's not true. I value you. I love you. I respect you. But it's all nonsense. So let's get on with the show.
Yeah, and there's so much education out there about goal setting. And so much education. Oh, you've got to have a 5-year goal. You got to have a 10-year goal. You got to know what's going to happen week to week, month to month, year to year, up to get this 10-year
goal. Minute to minute.
Exactly. And it's, you get people can get so stuck on this rigid idea of what this is supposed to look like. And if it doesn't look like this, you're a fucking failure. You're losing. And this is what can create all this deep, dark emotions start to get it to rise up, because you've restricted yourself to this path that an ant couldn't fit down, let alone a full-grown human being. And it's painful to see, man. I've been there. I've got hiding behind those pictures that are behind you is a vision board that I thought I needed because it's if I want all these things and I've got to set this 5-year, 10-year goal, I will be able to have all of these things, and I just need to follow this one path. That's it. One is
a slip. I'm a piece of shit.
It's a small number, one. But it's I don't like what's on the other side. I don't like what's going to happen if I fall off this path. So you sit down for a minute and you take a breath, and let's say it's maybe I'll try this yoga thing a go. Or maybe I'll try this meditation thing and go, whoop, sorry, bro, you just fell off your path. Now you're a failure. And that is ridiculous. It's the complete opposite. It's you are limiting yourself so much as a human being to your actual potential because of this almost algorithmic mathematical equation you've created for success.
Yep.
And guess what algorithms and mathematics is? It's the brain. You're letting your life be run by your brain, and a vision of what you want. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with wanting things. There's nothing wrong with having a vision and a dream of what life could be like. But I can't remember. I think it was Simon Sinek. He's this guy. I don't know if you ever heard of Simon Sinek. Yeah. He's very, 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 very smart man. Very, very intellectual man, but he's also extremely conscious of what's happening in the world around him and how he lives his own life. And one of the best things I picked up from him was that when you go and you have an idea that you want a holiday, this nice relaxing time, is that, let's say, we're in Perth. Let's say we're going to drive down to Margaret River and we're going to go and have our holiday. It's going to be 3 weeks, and this is exactly how we're going to get there. We're going to drive down the freeway, then we're going to turn off at Bunbury. We're going to head down the road to Margaret River, and that's how we're going to get there. But that's the only way we can go. This is like your crazy goal that you're setting for yourself. And all of a sudden, bam, there's a big crash in the freeway, and you can't get past it unless you have to go back. You can't go forward anymore. Do you just give up on the holiday and just go, oh, fuck it, that's over, let's go home? Let's just go back to what we were doing. Or do you head back, find a different road, and, find a different way to go there? And, yeah, you might be a couple of hours late for, your ideal, time that you wanted to get there. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how you get there. Mm-hmm. Because who knows what's going to have this journey? All of a sudden, you've got your wife and your kids are now helping you look for a different route. So you're working together as a team. Then you're laughing and joking, and you're communicating better as a family. And you start playing games, you start having fun, and all of a sudden, this sidetrack of a journey that you've taken is way better than the journey you were taking in the first place. Mm-hmm. And this is the metaphor that I got from Simon about this is what life is about. We're so focused on the route, the direction, how to get there, that we don't allow for that freedom of creativity and passion to really come out of us. And it's a problem, but it's sad.
Yeah, and I think the biggest antidote to that, and to speak into that from my personal experience, is like, if we're so laser focused on one thing, we've kind of put blinders on our vision to not allow ourselves to see other things. And who are you to know that from that current perspective in which you created that goal, that's going to be the absolute one thing that's best for you? Like for me, before I knew about fitness, I had no passions. And if I didn't walk into that gym, I wouldn't have found a passion. So who am I to know that I haven't found my next passion or the next opportunity? I don't know. So for me to assume now that I know exactly what's best for me in this moment, I'm only going to focus on that and put everything else aside, is actually idiotic, because I'm closing off the possibility of me finding other delicious things in my life. So there's nothing wrong with wanting to move to something, but we need to remain very present and receptive in the process. Like you don't want to be so loose that you just flow because you're not going to get anywhere, and you don't want to be so rigid that you're stuck like this. You want to be like a bendy river, not just like a straight river. So you're still feeling into and understanding what life is telling you about yourself and about your situation as you move through life. And if you're doing that, then you've got flexibility like a good bit of bamboo in your goals. It's not just going to snap and everything falls to shit. You're like, oh, I've actually got to twist a little bit here or move a little bit here, and I don't have a choice. I need to move with this. Because you can either then move with it, or you can play victim to it. And we can't control circumstance. The moment that you think you do, you're full of shit, because you can't. You didn't. When COVID came in and people locked you in your house, doesn't matter whether you think it's right or wrong or not. People can arrest you if you leave your house. In some countries, you don't have a choice. How can you dance that dance knowing that that's your reality now? A lot of people, instead of dancing with that, they just complain and resist. But when things are the way they are, there are some constraints that you have to embrace. You may as well embrace them, because it's a lot more empowering than resisting them. Yeah. But to speak into the whole curveball plot twist thing, the whole car crash and having to turn around. At the end of last year, my partner of 5 years had feelings for one of my friends and left me. And I could have been like, this is the end of the world, fuck you, fuck you. I gave them both the fullest of permissions, and I'm like, where is my life taking me now? And now I've got a really loving relationship that I did not expect and I wasn't looking for, and it came out of nowhere, and it's the best thing I've ever experienced. And my heart has been cracked open so much because I let myself feel the full spectrum of emotions, and now I'm in a far better place. Could I have predicted that? No. If I held on to what I had, I would be miserable. So once we get intoxicated by the idea, which is a thought of how things should be, we're not able to be living in life as it is, because we're thinking it needs to be a certain way. And a really powerful quote is, the amount of pain that we feel is is our expectations versus reality. The gap between those things is the amount of pain that we feel. So if you think life should be this way, or a person should be that way, the moment that they're not, you're going to feel an amount of pain proportional to that. And the moment we realize you can't control where the sun is in the sky, and you can't control another person, can you accept that? It's up to you whether you do or not. I don't give a fuck. I have. But when you do, there's a sense of freedom there. And it doesn't mean we then let go of moving somewhere. You accept things how they are and still have commitment to being who you want to be and moving towards what feels true to you. But knowing that you're Joey Ing. You're not just Joey. I'm Joel Ing, and I'm always in a state of flux. I'm always a new person in every moment. I'm not just Joel. This is Joel. Joel is always this way. Joel is never going to fucking change. That is a joke. Everyone changes, even if they don't realize that they're changing. So we need to realize we're always inging, and to realize that there has to be a sense of fluctuation and movement and reflection along that journey. And it doesn't mean like you might want to commit to something for 3 months, then check in. How did that affect my life? How do I feel? And how did I perform there? Did it feel true to me? If not, what small changes can I make so the next 3 month block is a bit truer? And you're never going to iterate to it because you're always changing anyway. Yeah. But at least you've got some sense of flexibility while still honoring the beautiful intellect we have that allows us to create our futures and allows us to, without intellect, we wouldn't have a microphone here. Yeah. I'm just going to feel my way into technology. No, you have to use that side of the brain, but they can complement one another really beautifully. One gives feedback to the other helps create a life that serves the other, and you have to use them both together.
I think it's a beautiful thing that you brought up, is that, we're always changing. And it's something I see, I've had this conversation with my wife, I've had it with clients, I've had it with, regular people, other people, is that there's this belief that if you do something and learn something and you've gone through it and you've come to the end point, then that's it. You don't need to do it anymore. You're fixed and you're on the road to being perfect again. Whereas it's not like that at all, is it, man? No. It's, we are always going to have to work on ourselves because things are always going to keep on happening to us. Good, bad, in between.
Life's going to keep laughing, right?
Yeah. And it's like, I think funnily enough, man, somebody said this to me when I was working away. They said, I think I was 24 at the time. They looked me in the eyes and said, tell you what, man, 27 is going to be the most life-changing year of your life. And it was just like, it's a really odd thing to say. Yeah. And I was just like, okay. 27 came around, but were they right? It was like, this is the year for me, was the year that's like, whoa, change. Move to Australia. Change my career. Start to confront my emotions. Start to deal with all the shit that I've dealt with, I've been feeling for the past 20 years. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't if you put it on paper, it doesn't look like the happiest of years, but fuck me, was it life-changing. And I've kind of forgot where I was going with this now, but it's there was this thing that I thought, it's like, oh yes, I'm going to get on top of this and I'm going to be fixed, I'm going to be better, and it's like, oh,
I'll make it to the promised land.
Beautiful. Yeah. And that was 8 years ago now. Yeah. And it's like, this morning I was still doing work on myself. This morning I was journaling about something that happened to me when I was a kid. And it's like, just because time goes by, time is not a measurement of this thing that we're trying to do. It doesn't come into play. It's like, the only time you're going to stop learning and growing is when as this physical thing, is when you physically die. Sounds shit and blunt, but it's just the reality of it.
You're gonna die, guys. Get used to it. Like, let's drop the bullshit. You will die.
Yeah. But that's the thing, man, and I'm sure you can relate to this too. Is like, you're more than likely still having to do work on yourself every day, right?
Yeah, and I don't even like to call it work. I'm just doing me, So like, if I'm showing up in my relationship and something's not working, of course I'm going to bring some more attention to that to make it better, or to make it, figure out what's going on there. So like, one of the beautiful questions one of my fellow coaches asks in my men's group is like, where in your life are you lacking power, freedom, or love? And there's always going to be times, you might have a time where things are working really well, but as you're going out in the world, as things are changing, your situation changes, new things are going to get brought up. You're relating to a different style of personality. You're in a different frame of work. You've got a new client and different challenge. Different parts of you are going to be exposed to different challenges, which is going to bring other stuff up. So because things are always changing, new things are going to be brought to our awareness, and that's just the growth process. I agree that it is work, and I don't like to really call it men's work because, people think it's implying you need fixing and it's hard work. Like, we're just humaning, and we're just like optimizing our human experience so it's fucking sick and delicious. You know what I mean? Because like, if you see like, I need to work on myself, even that has that kind of, that I need to be better to love myself mentality, instead of like, okay, I'm just checking in with where I am as like my best friend. How you going, bro? Okay, you're hurting. Cool. I'm going to give you some love. Not like, we need to get this emotion out of the way so that we can be more, so we can achieve the thing.
Yeah.
And so it's more like developing a really delicious relationship with yourself, the same way that if you walked into the room and your partner felt a little bit down, I hope so that you're like, this guy's, how you feeling, babe? Or you just feel that she's feeling off and just give her some space and give her a hug. Or bring her like a fucking cookie. I don't know what she likes, you know. Bend her over and spank her on the butt, like, let's go, baby. Whatever it is, right? But then we need to develop that with ourselves the same way that we naturally do that with our loved ones. Hopefully that you do that, guys. If not, try and practice some more of that, because it's so beautiful to channel that inwards or outwards. And then it doesn't need to be seen as some work. It's like, fuck, if I'm journaling, it's just like having a great conversation with myself.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if I ask you a great question, excuse me, weird sounding came out there. You can give me a great answer, I get to know you more. If I ask myself a great question, I get to know myself more.
Yeah.
Like, why do we have to see it as work instead of this beautiful, curious inquisition or inquiry to get to know ourselves more? And then the more we know ourselves, the better life we can create. Do you know what I mean? But it's never done. It's never done. Nothing's ever done.
Yeah, that's so true, man.
Nothing's ever done.
And I have a very love-hate relationship with what I'm about to say, but one thing I love about the world of medicine is the fact that they always say to themselves, we're just practicing medicine.
Practice. I love
we're
it.
Practicing.
Yep.
And that's what we're doing as human beings.
Love it.
We're not trying to work through life. We're practicing it. Because when you practice something, it makes it okay to make mistakes.
Yep.
Makes it okay to have successes.
Yep.
It makes it okay for everything, because we're just practicing. We're just practicing through this life. That's all we're doing, is practicing.
Love it.
And I guess this is why people say it's like, oh, well, these are the practices that I put into place in my life to help me go through what I do. And it's, you know, yes, you get some people out there that, you know, are portrayed in movies as completely off the rails in terms of, you know, I don't want to say off the rails because that's unfair. They're just living their life. They're just doing their thing.
We can use this language. You don't have to be too conscious. That guy needs to get his shit together, you know? Yeah.
But, you know, I met a guy recently, completely off the grid. 100%. No phones, no electricity, apart from his solar panels that he has, compost toilet. You name it, man. This guy is living off the land. He has no TVs, no nothing. He just interacts with people, and yes, he gets high a lot of the time. So he goes on his journeys. Beautiful man, so much love, and you can feel it radiating from him. The problem is this guy, not as a representation of him, but as like being spiritual, that archetype, is thrown around through media way too much. It's like, this is what spirituality is, or getting in touch with yourself is. This is what it looks like. And it's like, well, yeah, that's an extreme, but I've also got you here. Yeah. And you've also got me here. And I'm living, you know, that same sort of practice as this guy is. It's just on a different path, and I like the world that I live in, and I'm practicing through it, you know. And you don't have to go to that extreme where you think that's that's where life is going to head. Just stay with an open mind. It's like, I think one of the best things I ever got taught as an adult from my mum was about yoga. I think she was 23 when she introduced me to yoga, and at the time I was like, yoga's for chicks and weird people. And then I started doing yoga, and I was able eventually to stand on my head, and I was like, well, that's pretty cool. That's quite exciting. That's quite fun. It's like, I wonder what else is out there that's, you know, I've been putting off and not been doing.
Curiosity, bro. Curiosity.
And this is it. It's like, you know, there are things out there that can help and support you. You just have to let go of this negative stigma that other people put on them for you. And what are some of the things that you found for yourself that help you day to day in this practice of life?
First I want to say, like, you know, you spoke about it really well. When you were going into yoga, you're like, my mind, you know, you're talking about what was going on in your mind. And I like to say, like, my mind thought this, because it wasn't necessarily you, it's your mind's judgment, right? Because when you did it, you loved it. So your mind had this prejudice of yoga. So your mind's like, it's for sissies or whatever it is. Our mind has all these prejudices of everything. And we need to be curious and challenge all of those, because your mind doesn't know about how something's going to be until you've participated in it. It's just its prejudice of it. So if you assume you know how it's going to go, you don't know. It's another load of shit, right? So remaining curious and then fully participating in something to actually see whether it serves you or not is the key, because you don't know until you've done it. So a lot of people are like, that's not for me. I'm like, have you tried it? Oh no. I'm like, well, how do you know? Come on, man. You don't actually know. So you could be closing the most significant door ever in your life because you weren't willing to knock on it. So we need to be willing to face fear as well, because we have a belief system that like, this is how the world is. Anything outside of that isn't right. That's not how life should be. I'm scared of that. I don't live that way. We have our beliefs that create our reality. And when we leave the world that is known to us and safe to us, which is our comfort zone, which I also like to call it like a really cushy coffin, because you're not alive there. You're in this realm of knowns, just repeating the same things. We need to know that to live on the edge and to grow and to experience riches in life, we need to move through fear or resistance or judgment. Otherwise, you're just repeating the same stuff. And do you want to repeat the same stuff your entire life? Some things, yes, but I don't want to repeat the same stuff my entire life. I want to lift some more weight or have some better sex or meet some new people or explore my body in different ways, whatever it is. Why would you keep repeating the same shit? So I think before we even get into practices, the willingness to fully participate, to let go of how you think it should be, and then to actually see how it is for you is massive. Yeah.
Well, it's making me laugh, man, because you're reminding me like, I don't know whether you're much of a gamer and you play PlayStation or anything like that, but one of my favorite games that I've played over recent years is FIFA. Absolutely love it. Mad soccer fan, mad football fan, so love playing FIFA. One thing that I'm sure that any listener who's ever played FIFA is the fucking rage that comes from playing this game. You play it on easy. It's easy. Score goals, doesn't get you angry. You get to the hard, put it on a higher difficulty level and start struggling. This game will piss you the fuck off. Where I'm going with this is that the amount of times I've taken that rage and thrown it onto my wife or onto a mate or onto someone around me it happens all the time. And this is what I'm sort of trying to work my way into about this coffin, is that I'm shut myself off into this life where it's like, okay, PlayStation's my only outlet,
But then it pisses you off as well.
Yeah, it
Great outlet, bro.
Gives me all this rage. Yep. But it's like, I need this in my life to feel safe and secure. And this is this coffin. And it's like, this is what it's like, you're feeling dead inside. Like, yes, I get enjoyment out of playing the game, but it's what it does to me after I finish playing it. That, that travels on to other areas of your life. Yeah. And that's kind of what it came up for me as you were talking and saying through that. It's like, when you're in this coffin, it traps you
100%,
and you feel so stuck. And it's like, well, I'm so angry, but I've got no time for meditation, or I've got no time to try all these other things, man. I just need to feel better. Let's go play FIFA.
I'm going to do the same fucking thing that doesn't work, and I'm going to get the same result because I haven't thought differently.
Yeah.
That's the reality. And I'm not giving you guys shit. I do all these things too. Like, when I say these things so plainly, I'm not trying to mock the viewers. I have deep compassion and empathy for them, but I'm trying to be a little bit like satirical about how stupid it is as well. We're not choosing to be stupid. Our brain's just doing it, but it is fucking stupid. And once we realize, okay, this thing makes me pissed off and it hasn't actually solved any of my problems, maybe I should try something different. Yeah. And a really beautiful quote is like, you can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that you created it at. Like, in other words, if your mind created the problem, it's not going to be able to solve the problem. So if you're using the same mindset to try and fix your life, nothing's going to change. So you need to change the way you think or change the tools that you use to get a different result. Or even though trying the same thing 1,000 times and expecting a different result is insanity. Once we realize that, we give ourselves permission to, it might even be changing one habit. Because we do like to have this sense of safety and control, and that's okay. You don't always have to be like wild guys like me who like, I want to go hard at that and just send it. You know what I mean? That doesn't have to be you. You might be like, for the next 10 weeks, I'm going to try the Headspace app and see how that feels. And just notice how it's a change, Or I might once a week go try and meet someone new. It doesn't have to be massive and life altering, but once you realize you have some flexibility, you're training the muscle of allowing yourself to open more doors. And the more doors that are open, the more free that you feel, because you have choice, and choice is ultimately what we want as a free being, instead of just being restricted to being in this cycle that we haven't even chosen for ourselves. It's just kind of happened unconsciously for us. Do you want to know about specific practices that I do? Is that something?
Before we jump onto that,
keep going.
I think what you were saying just then, I think this is important to take note of, is that you know, those slight changes in thinking patterns, you know, and this shows up, I think, for a lot of people when they change jobs, change relationships and things like that. Change also has this effect, but it has this effect immediately. And I think this is where people get stuck, because it's so sudden and so instantaneous. People gravitate towards change before they, like, external change, I mean, before they gravitate towards internal change. So, for example, this is why people, like, when you change a career or you move into a new relationship, or let's say you're in a relationship and you find a new one while you're in that one, it's changed, it's different, it's exciting, it's new, it's fresh, it's not got all the drama and the turmoil that you have in that current thing that's going on for you. So, like, if you go out and find a new job, you haven't got all the stress that you left behind, but you still got you. You're still there, and that's still somewhere in your body.
You're dragging the same stuff with you.
Yeah. Same to the relationship, and I can speak for this myself. Like, how many times have I and many other people, I'm sure, gone from one relationship to the next, and it's like you're blaming the person that you're now with for something somebody else did to you in your last relationship. And this is why, you know, change might feel good, and there's that common saying out there that change is as good as a rest. Yeah, it might feel like a rest, because you're literally removing your environment that's triggering these things. That doesn't mean that your new environment's not going to trigger them eventually.
I hope that it does.
Oh yeah.
So you can actually face your shit instead of running from it by changing environments.
But I think it's important for, you know, for people to understand, if you're wanting to feel that thing to change, like you're wanting to leave your current job, you're wanting to remove yourself from your relationship, or make something, a big move, a big shift in life, just give yourself an hour, a day, just a small amount of time to really sit with this feeling and take it in, and to say, you know, is this something that I really want? Is this change something that I really want? Because most of the time, once you change it, it's very difficult to go back. And you might find that it's just the environment that you're in that's triggering you at this moment in time, that's causing these feelings to come up, not the actual person, or not the actual thing that you're in. Like, it might just be there's an asshole at work that just pisses you off, and you've not dealt with that yourself. It might be that, you know, your missus is that time of the month. It might be that your partner is, you know, getting some stick at work, and they're not the happiest at the moment, so that's triggering you. So it makes you feel like you want to run away. And it's like, just before you run, I speak from the fullest of experience that I've run from fucking so much in my life, is that just take that moment to go inside and look inside, because you'll never know whether you ran away from the most beautiful thing that you ever had. You will never know. But if you sit there and you deal with your stuff first, and you deal with your emotions first, and then you decide you'll leave, at least you knowing in the fullness of your entire body that you're making the right decision for you. And that, to me, man, is so important.
Massive, bro.
Yeah.
Massive. And it's like, I think people need to realize that it's circumstances are just revealing something that's already happening within you most of the time, right? There are sometimes, you know how you said earlier, like past emotions are the main source of triggers. No, sometimes people will cross you and think that are going to upset you, right? We can't expect that we've cleared all our past emotions. Now we don't feel any negative emotions. We're always going to feel all emotions, because they're just like feedback systems that are guiding us back to our center. So we need to acknowledge that. But it's like someone who's gone from, like, you know, they've taken MDMA and they party on the weekends, and now all of a sudden, like, oh, I don't do that anymore. I do plant medicine and I go to ecstatic dances. They're the same person, just in a different environment. And if you think you can modify your environment to run away from your shit, you're kidding yourself. So we need to always be in an ongoing process of looking inwards and inquiring, why is that? Why is this reaction so disproportionate? Because if it's proportionate, sometimes they're warranted, right? But if this is disproportionate, it's reoccurring, and it's coming up here and it's coming up here, it's coming up, maybe it's trying to guide me deeper to understand this, so I can change my perspective or clear that past emotion, so now I can just be me. And now that I'm being me in that situation, how does this situation feel? So we need to not run, we need to go into the stuff, not away from the stuff. And that's the whole thing about the shadow. The shadow sounds really bad. It's just the parts of yourself that you're not looking at. We just need to go into ourselves, not seek answers outside of ourselves. And I can speak for myself, like my 5-year relationship that I just came out of, her dad passed away, and that was really traumatizing for her, and it happened in really unfortunate circumstances. She went through all these health issues, and I stayed with her for a long time because I truly wanted to see whether it was right for me or not. And in the end, we separated, but I know that I showed up fully as myself in that relationship, and I love myself for that. I didn't abandon her, and I didn't abandon myself. And it's important that we don't just, at the as soon as things get tough, we go, guys, life is always going to be tough. It is always going to be tough. You can't avoid it. Make sure you're actually choosing which toughs you go into, and listen to your heart. And it's really hard to discern whether something's good for you or if there's some emotional pain there. So we need to develop that deep awareness within ourselves. Like, am I actually not meant to be with her? Or is it because something's grinding me that's my own? We're not going to know that until we generate deeper awareness. So we can't make good decisions for ourselves until we really get to know ourselves. And that's why we need to do this work. And I did inverted commas there, guys, when I said work. That's why we need to have some fun and get to know ourselves. You know what? Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's I think about there was a good to fair chance that I wouldn't be in this relationship now if I hadn't gone into that work that I'd done. There was this flashing point I remember that my wife now and again lets me not forget.
Love you, ladies. Yeah. Shout out to the wives who trigger us. Yeah. Fuck you all. No, we love you.
But yeah, it's she. There was a good chance that I would have run away at this point. And like you pointed out on something that it is not necessarily gonna be always you, but one thing that I've realized across this point, when I've latched onto that feeling when I wanted to run, and it pops up every now and again, not as this it doesn't manifest itself in the same way, but the feeling is the same every single time. And it's one thing that I always realize is when I sit down, it's like, it's not her, it's me. And I would say, well, in fact, I'm going to say this, it's 100% of the time, because if it wasn't 100%, I wouldn't be here right now. But 100% of the time, is it something within me that's causing this feeling? And it's, nobody's going to have the same experiences that I am, because that's obviously what makes me uniquely me. But it all dials down back to my childhood. And a lot of the fears I had about not having a dad. And it's this massive insecurity that feels as soon as I feel like abandonment is going to be on the horizon, then let me abandon first, because if I'm on top of it, then I don't have to feel that hurt and pain. I can pass that on to somebody else, and that's their fucking problem. Whereas, do I really want that? Do I really want that? Do I really want to go on that journey again? No. Okay. Well, what is it? What is it, Joey? What is it that's making you feel this? And it's just like, it's just, I'm just afraid. But that's okay. It's nice to be afraid. It's a real emotion. It makes you shows that things are real. That's scary. Moving through life and committing yourself to a person is a scary thing, because you're giving them so much of emotion, so much of yourself. Having a child in this world is exactly the same thing. Don't get me wrong, I love my daughter to death, but God almighty, there's been some times when I've made some very, very, very questionable thoughts. Yeah, man, I'm not going to say what you just did, but yeah, that has passed through my mind, man, like dark fucking thoughts about,
It's not, you're a human being, bro.
Yeah.
It's part of being human.
Again, it's a normal thing.
Yeah.
And it's just, have that, I think one of the best lessons I've learned personally throughout this is to have compassion for myself. It is the fucking number one. Because as soon as I started to have compassion for myself and who I was and the thoughts I was having and the feelings that was coming up, it made me calm. And then it made me realize that I can be compassionate for what my wife goes through, from what my daughter's doing. She's screaming her eyes out for hour upon hour at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 3:30. Yeah, I'm getting angry. I want to hurt this kid because I'm so tired. But that because I've got that compassion for myself, I can also have this compassion for my daughter that she isn't able to talk. She isn't able to communicate with me. She's just trying to express that something's not right, and I am so young, I do not know what it is. And I can't physically even tell you it if I did.
Mm-hmm.
So it just gives you that sense of like, I could just sit in the noise and the screaming and not necessarily be super happy about what's going on, but there's a deep inside feeling of happiness and joy that it's just like, this is just my daughter explaining to me that she's sad and that she's not feeling right, but she trusts me to hold her and help her feel better. And how fucking beautiful is that? And it's the same with my wife. It's like, you know, there's times she can speak to me. She can explain what's wrong. Most of the time, she doesn't like to. Bless you, women.
We love you, ladies. we love you. Please give us a user manual. Thank you.
But at the same time, it's like, well, that's just her going through her stuff and her emotions, and she's dealing with it in her own way.
Yeah.
But if I've not had that compassion for myself, it's very difficult for me as a human being to see that compassion and have that for her. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about doing this inner work is once you do it and you get that level of compassion for yourself, you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
Because you realize that you are matter, I am matter. You are energy, I'm energy. You're cells, I'm cells.
Getting too hippie here, Joey. No, fuck it. I love you, bro.
But that's it at the end of the day, man. It's like we are all the same in that
We're
fact.
just humaning, man.
Exactly.
No one knows how to human.
Exactly.
Look at the state of the world. We will never figure it out.
We have a few manuals out there, not mentioning any names, but those manuals make people go crazy. Like the Bible. Makes people go crazy.
One size fits all for 7.8 billion people, guys.
Made 2,000.
I have that. That's my program. I'll tell you guys about that later. It's perfect for everyone.
Don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to bash the Bible.
No.
It's beautiful. One of my favorite movies. It's called The Love Guru. Really, really cheesy movie. Mike Myers, Mr. Austin Powers.
Yeah.
And he does a little skit in there. Bible. Bible. Basic instructions before leaving Earth. And I was like, wow. That's kind of what it is.
Yep.
It's just it's a lot of stories, beautiful ones, to help guide you through life. But it doesn't mean that's how you have to live your life exactly.
Yeah.
Like there is no manual, like you said.
Yep.
You know. And yeah, man, it's just nice to be able to have that level of freedom.
Freedom is what I feel like. I feel like people want to feel alive, but you can't feel alive if you're constrained, because then you can't fully be yourself. So, you know, especially men want to feel free, and like that, all the masculine part of us wants to feel free, but all of us want to. No one wants to be controlled, and when we're free, things are great, right? When it comes to compassion, one of the analogies that came to me, so I'm going to take credit for this one. Like, you know, if you're driving on the road and if someone's driving terribly, a lot of the time we'll be like, come on, like, what is this guy doing? Like, he's driving like an idiot. That's not safe, you know. This is interfering with things. It's a natural thought to have. But let's say you saw that happening and then you pulled up next to them and then have an L plate there. There can be a sense of understanding, forgiveness that they're still learning. Therefore, for me to have that expectation for them to be perfect is unreasonable, right? Guess what? All of us are still learning how to human. None of us will ever figure it out. It's not to be figured it out. Humans will never be perfect because we're made imperfect by what we believe perfect to be. Perfect is like, you're always going to be nice, never mean. You're always going to be happy, never sad. That cannot exist. We're always going to be humaning. We're always going to be learning. We're always going to be fucking up. It's not fucking up. You can look at it as fucking up, and it is, but it's just humaning. So once we realize that the whole world is on their L plates, we can chill the fuck out. And then we can begin to have compassion. The same way that if a kid is trying to figure something out and they don't know it, you would have compassion for them. Why do we then withdraw that from an adult when they're the exact same being that's just a little bit older, but they're still trying to figure things out? It's no different. But for some reason we think, oh, you've hit 18, now you should know everything. Now you should never make a mistake again. Tell me one person who doesn't make a mistake again. There's none. So this idea of us needing to be perfect or for us to have all these expectations of others or to meet these standards is so unreasonable because it just makes no sense. And this is why, you know, I do talk about emotions, but when we look at these things objectively and logically, this is a very logical thing I'm describing to you, we can realize that it's bullshit not to have compassion because it doesn't make sense to not have compassion. And that's why, you know, just think about it a little bit, guys, and then Stop thinking about it. Try and have a bit more compassion for yourself and others and see how it goes. Because often we come up with all these stories as to why we shouldn't. Well, he did this and he did this and he did this and she did that and that and that and that. What happens if you let go of all that resentment and have compassion? Well, I want to hold on to that because they deserve it. No, just let's play with a thought experiment. How would you feel if you didn't have to hold on to that resentment?
Yeah.
Well, I'd feel a lot lighter. So do you want to keep holding on to that? That's up to you. But at the end of the day, that's your shit you're holding on to. And once we realize we can just soften the shit out of life and we have a lot more acceptance and a lot more compassion, things become very beautiful. There's one trap we need to be aware of, though, which is blind compassion. When we are ignorant of how people are hurting us.
Yeah.
And you're in this spiritual space where like, oh, I want to love everything and be overly compassionate, but there needs to be boundaries around how people are behaving, because a lot of the time, oh, that's just him. No, bro, you're fucking hurting people, man. You need to do something about that, or I don't want you in my life. That's very important as well. So we need to be, and we need to have that relationship with ourselves, that internal father energy. We have like, you know, have you heard of the term reparenting?
Yeah.
It's kind of for your inner child. Like the way we speak to ourselves is really powerful. Like if you abuse yourself in your own head, how would a child feel? Yeah. They're going to feel like trash, okay? So how we talk to ourselves in our own mind is really powerful. We want to have like a father and a mother sitting up in our mind. So like, I love you no matter what. Then the dad voice comes in. So that's the mother voice. I love you no matter what. The dad voice is, but if we're being objective, this. It's not from a place of judgment. It's objectivity. And a lot of people, we've lost touch with that objectivity. Your behaviors are hurting yourself and they're hurting people. I'm not saying you need to change them and be perfect right now, but we need to look at this and be objective about that. And blind compassion, people can lose that. And that's why we enable our friends to hurt themselves, because we don't want to have those hard conversations because we just want to love them as they are. But sometimes that's not love. Sometimes we're enabling them. And then we're not willing to have those hard conversations because we don't want to be the bad guy, or we don't want to push their buttons. Sometimes that's what they need. So we have to be very careful with compassion. Yes, we have it for ourselves, but we still need to be honest with ourselves as well. Not blind compassion, honest and to the point compassion. I love you, bro, but this fucking sucks. Let's do something about it.
Yeah. I think that's what a lot of people lack in this world at the moment. Like, I can't remember, it may have been Joe Rogan's show I was listening to. And I think they asked a question maybe like back in 2000s, early 2000s. It's like, you know, how many people do you have around with you at the moment that you think can, if you needed, they would be there for you, you could call upon them, but they would also call you out on your shit. And the average answer was about 3 to 4. And then they asked this question, I think it was back in 2018 again, and this was all done in America, and the average answer was none. 0. And I don't know why, but this not necessarily just the having someone there to call upon if you needed them, but also having someone that can call you out on your shit.
Yeah, because we're not aware of our own shit.
Yeah, it's so fucking important. And I think this is what coaches and coaching, the really good ones.
Buy my program. No.
I think this is what is so beautiful about this world that is starting to emerge from this need for people to be held, not just accountable, but to be held for everything. To realize that you don't need to know somebody for 30 years to be able to have compassion for you and to have love and care and feelings for you and to be there for you and to also call you out on your shit. This can happen with anybody. You just have to trust them.
Yeah.
That's it.
100%. I think, you know, when, I forget who it was, one of my friends who had trouble trusting, they needed to wait for someone to prove themselves enough to be able to trust them. But that just doesn't make any sense at all. You need to lead with trust and start with trust, and then trust will form. Otherwise, you're always not trusting. Therefore, how can you get trust? And I can generate deep relationships very quickly. You know, me relating to people in my life, or me with clients, where they've trusted me in 1 or 2 sessions more than I have people in their entire life. And it's not because of my title, or it's not because of what I know. It's because I just give them the energy of trust and safety, and it's a decision. We can decide that in any moment, whether we live with an open heart, even if it hurts, whether we expose those parts of ourselves to people that we don't want to be seen. It's up to us to make that decision. But once we do it, it's really powerful. You know, and I heard this quote the other day talking about, you know, coaching and this kind of stuff. A lot of people blame that the coach didn't create a safe enough space or this or that, but often it's the people who aren't willing to be vulnerable, and that's up to them. And so anyone who's listening, yes, people can help you, but it's up to you to decide to take that leap, to open up your heart a little bit, and to be seen as weak or imperfect or whatever those things you're afraid of being seen at, to admit all of your faults, but they're not faults, they're just expressions of you being a human being. It's up to you to start that process. And this is why men's work is so powerful, because we create a safe container with rules and privacy and direction and you know, other things scaffolded onto it that takes trust to the next level, where guys who have never had a deep male relationship within 2 or 3 weeks are like, I trust these men. You know, sometimes in we do like a day-long event to start off a program, and in the one-day event, they have felt more love and trust from these men that they don't know than anyone in their life. So I like to challenge you people who, like, relationships take time and loving takes time and trusting takes time. It doesn't. You're just closing off your heart because it's been hurt, and that's okay, but it's up to you to decide to open it. And once you start living that way, it is fucking awesome, guys. I highly recommend it. You know, like I get to meet the best of people because I bring my open heart to them. And, you know, a lot of people, when they're describing, like, let's say we have a mutual friend and they describe that friend back to me, they're telling me a completely different version of them. Why? Because they're not bringing an open heart into the relationship. Therefore, they're not seeing the best of that person. Whereas I bring my fullest to that person, and they respond by opening up to me and, like, blossoming like a flower. So I have this really unique experience of being able to see the best sides of everyone because I'm deciding to bring that trust and love with me. So even if you're not doing it for yourself, guys, which you should, do it for the other people in your life. Give them that love and trust, because they'll get to blossom and meet parts of themselves that they haven't met.
I love what you brought up, man. I think we've spoken about it already, is that time is not a measurement tool that should be used in this. Like, it really isn't. Like, if you're putting a time limit on something, or you're expecting, you know, time to be a part of this, it isn't. Because
just practice it, guys. It's a practice, right?
Indeed. In the moment, there is no time, because this moment's now gone. Now this moment's gone. Now this moment's gone. But I'm still here in the present. I'm still present in this space that I'm in right now. So time is irrelevant. Because it's like, you know, we've been talking for, God knows how long, maybe 2 hours already. And, you know, I feel more closer and connected to you in 2 hours than I have done with a lot of people that I've known for years.
Thank you, brother.
No, and all it is because we're two human beings that come in, we open our heart up, we trust, you know, we share love, we share our knowledge, and that's all it is. It's like, I feel like I could speak to you about anything, not feel judged, not feel like I'm in the wrong, or not feel guilty, but I also feel that you would give me honest and open feedback. And if you couldn't help me, you would say, sorry, bro, you know, I love you and thanks for sharing, but, you know, I think this is a bit out of my scope. You know, and that's the beautiful thing I love about these spaces and people like yourself, is that this is the sort of thing that's created. And this, like we said, this has just taken, I don't even think it took a couple of hours. I think I felt this, you know, as soon as I met you, man, like, it radiates from you.
Thanks,
just because of what you do, and, you know, how you carry yourself and how you talk. You're not afraid to be who you are. And that in itself is a beautiful thing. And it hasn't taken any time, because I've just allowed myself to go, yeah, trust this dude. He seems like he's going to have my back. And that's all it takes. And you know what? If this person doesn't have you back, I'm not saying this is you, but if this person doesn't ever hand you back, it's just, okay, I'll move on.
It's my favorite 2-word mantra, so what?
Yeah, so what?
You can be like, I trusted him and this and that and that, but at the end of the day, people lie, people deceive, people make mistakes. Can you accept that reality, or you're going to hold that over everyone's head, and the moment they don't meet that, how dare you? Do you know what I mean? And the reason people trust me is because I've accepted I'm a fuck up as well. I'm a human being, you know? And if you did the same to me, I'm like, I get it. Let's have a chat. Let's move past it, you know? Instead of like,
Yeah, man,
Thank you. It's beautiful to receive that from you as well. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, brother.
Feels good to connect with a fellow brother. Yeah.
Well, man, we've been dancing around this question now for a little while. What are some of the practices that you use to obviously hold yourself in this state on a more continuous basis? Because I'm right in saying, right, that, you know, you're not always feeling at the top of yourself. You're not always feeling you're great. You admitted that, and you know it's part of who you are as a person, which is beautiful. But obviously, to keep yourself running at a level where you are feeling, above board, in a better state for more of the time. What are the sort of practices that you put into your day, into your week, into your life that help you sustain and maintain this?
Yeah, so I feel like the distinction for me, because a lot of people feel like they're using their practices or doing the work to reach a state of being. For me, it's to remain connected to myself. Because even if I'm angry, if I'm connected to myself and I'm angry, I can still make a better decision. And I'm not then expecting myself not to be angry or expecting myself not to be upset. Like if I'm like, the intention of my practice is to feel good always, I don't feel like that's a good practice.
Yeah.
It's like people who use exercise or meditation to try and feel good, yes, it can make you do that way, but that's no different to using heroin to make you feel good. When I meditate, I feel everything that's alive within me and I accept it. Instead of like, I'm going to meditate until I get clear or until I feel good, I'm going to be so conscious of what's going on in my body with utter acceptance. And a lot of the time it does make it go away, but that's not the point. The point is to become accepting of it, because once we're aware and accepting of something, it no longer has power over us because we're not trying to move away from it anymore. So I can show up here feeling really tired within my body, not like, oh, fuck, I'm tired, I'm not going to operate well. I'm aware that I'm tired, let's dance. You know what I mean? So having that intention of accepting where you're at in your practices and using them to deepen your relationship with yourself as your ruler, because we still need to have a ruler of how well our practices are going, but just changing that ruler to, I need to feel good, as I know this is what it is. I do a lot of embodiment work. So one of the things is we just do percussion. So hitting your entire body from head to toe, and while doing that, feeling deeply every part of your body, because our entire body is an emotional container, meaning from my fingertips to my tippy toes to all of my organs to my jaw, my heart, everything. We can feel everywhere, and we lose touch with that, especially as men, because of societal conditioning. So the more that we practice becoming embodied, which means feeling things in your felt experience, the more connected we are to ourselves, because that's where a lot of our emotional stuff comes from. So I have a series of embodiment practices I do in the morning, some specific positions I put my body in, which are called bioenergetic exercises that open up what we call armoring, the trapped tension in our body that is actually trapped emotion that constrains us to being a certain way, being trapped in having to be like an identity structure or to a certain, being addicted to certain emotions because they're stuck in our body. So I do those opening exercises most mornings, unless I've stayed up too late with my partner or something like that. So and one of the practices I use actually is a habit share app where I track all my habits, and then I reflect on how they were serving me, whether they actually felt true to me, do I need to modify them, and they're just foundational to make sure I'd keep my shit together. Okay, so that's one practice. The embodiment stuff is really powerful, and there's a form of breath work I do in there called Inner Fire, which is Tumo breath work, which really opens up the lower energy centers in the body and moves a lot of energy, because a lot of guys are out of touch with their balls and their power center. There's a lot of nice guys around. There's a lot of guys who think about taking up space is a bad thing and being potent is a bad thing, because we've been shamed for being masculine, and masculine is seen as over aggressive, but aggressiveness and potency is a part of masculinity. We just need to learn to polish that and sharpen that and use that in the right way. So getting reconnected to our legs and our cock and our balls and our power center. I do sexual practices where self-pleasure without pornography, without thinking, so it's in the body. And then starting just with self-touch. So many guys, with a chick, you wouldn't just straight go to her clit, right? You wouldn't. If you do, guys, make notes. Like I said earlier, be more loving and connected to your partner. Don't go straight for the clit. Sometimes if the mood's right, sorry guys if this is too explicit, but like just touch yourself as though you love yourself and feel what feels good to you, and actually feel it into your body before it's just about trying to extract pleasure from your body. Actually feel yourself and get to know yourself. And then when I do the self-pleasure, I do certain breathing techniques to move that sexual energy around my body. I still can't separate ejaculation from orgasm, but I refrain from ejaculating more than once a week to keep that sexual energy as well, because sexual energy is life force, and that's really important for guys to do that. And if we don't do that, it drains us massively. And I've felt that firsthand. And guys, if you think this is woo, remember we said let go of the judgment and commit to trying it fully for a period of time before you comment, because I guarantee you that you don't know, and on the other side of this you'll have a different relationship to masturbation. That has improved my sex life massively. What she feels from me, and even the embodiment work has, because the more I'm feeling in my body, the more she can feel my presence, or the more another man can trust me. If I'm floating in my head and I've got this anxious energy, you won't trust me. If I've done my embodiment work and I'm breathing deeply and I'm grounded in my body, you can trust me. So for me, the embodiment practices are massive. I still do journaling. I still do planning. Journaling can be as simple as looking at what I want to focus on for that day, focusing on my vision. Weekly journaling reflects on the prominent feelings I felt that week, what lessons I learned that week, what challenges that I learned that week. And that's kind of that model I was talking about of committing for a week and then reflecting and just seeing how things went. So I commit to my habits, I focus on the goals that I want to achieve, and then I genuinely reflect. Moment by moment, the most powerful practice is paying attention to my thoughts and how I feel.
Yeah.
Because what I think in my mind determines how I feel in my body, and often what I feel in my body can make me think a certain way, but it doesn't have to. So we could have a feeling coming up in our body from a trigger, from an experience. And when I went through my breakup of my partner, I could have easily made all these stories up on my head from the grief that I felt, right? How could she do that, this or that? Instead of doing that, instead of letting the feeling hit the mind, I just stayed present with the feelings. And so having deep awareness moment to moment is the most powerful thing that you can do. I'm always aware of my breath and how I breathe. I'd say always, as often as I can. It's a practice, right, guys? And life is a practice. I get to choose how deeply I'm connected to you. I get to choose what I'm feeling in my body. But my most powerful practice is moment to moment, paying attention to thoughts and how I feel. Yeah. And then just moderating my thoughts. When I say moderate, I don't I shouldn't feel that. Like, are these thoughts serving me right now? How are these thoughts making me feel? And if so, if I've got this victim mentality or this lack mentality or these thoughts that make me feel contracted, and contracted makes me feel small or less than I'm not in my power, can I reframe the way that I think to still be with reality, not bullshit myself, but to choose it to something more empowering? Asking myself a focusing question, like, how can I show up more in this moment? What do I need in this moment? Just using a really powerful question to reorientate my mind, because the mind responds really well to questions. Focusing questions have been massive for me. So embodiment practices, obviously I do men's work, so I always have a safe container of powerful men around me to hold me to a high standard. And I used to be so inauthentic. I always would only display my good bits and hide away all my bad bits because I didn't want to be seen as less than, and I was so ashamed of that. Now I show all of my bits as best as I can all the time to people around me. I have a men's circle with my coaches every fortnight, and I hold 3 men's circles a week for my men's group. So I'm always in circle. So I always am forced to be exposed and to be seen and not bullshit myself. And having that container, that place where I have to be real and we're asking ourselves deep questions. Sometimes I get more out of my own circles than my guys do because I'm offering myself those deep questions. So yeah, that's the good stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty immense, man. It's awesome that massive connection that you put to yourself. Most people, I think, struggle to give themselves 5 minutes to sit down and read a book if they enjoy reading.
I spend so much time. I spend hours a day by myself now.
It's beautiful that you give yourself that time. I guess a good question to ask for the listeners, obviously, like if they're, I'm a man or a woman, I'm listening to this, I'm resonating with what you're saying. What would be something that could be good to start? What would be like a little practice that, wouldn't be demand too much of me at this stage, but would also start to give me that sense that I'm able to connect to myself better?
Yep. I think the breath is number one. Like if I put a little bit of story into this, even I've had a nose job and I've had asthma and sinus issues my whole life, and apparently my jaw's out of whack, and that's affected my breathing too. So breath has been a big theme for me my whole life. And as a coach, I learned I went deep into kinesiology and how the breath is related to like the intrinsic subsystem of how the body stabilizes itself without thinking and all these things. So I've been using breath in training for a long time. It's always been there. And I've literally made people do deep breathing because I wanted them to do dead bugs, which is a basic core exercise. And they've cried on the mats just from doing basic breathing. Like I've had crazy results from breathing. I'm not saying the whole purpose of breathing is to get somewhere, but spending time practicing deep, relaxing breathing through the nose, out through the nose or the mouth. But the point too is not always to try and make yourself breathe deeply. How you're breathing in any moment is an expression of how your body's feeling. So one practice I make people do is meet their breath with where it's at, because that's going to show you how you're feeling in this moment. So a lot of people, as soon as they go into a breath practice, they're like, I want to breathe deeply to make myself relaxed. But they're always still moving away from the emotion. So like, can you just notice how your breath feels in this moment? Just notice the physical sensations, not your analysis of it, just the physical sensations. And as you begin to notice it more, you may notice there's underlying feelings there as you just notice your breath, because your breath is your gateway to deeper awareness within yourself. And then just not making anything wrong, just giving it presence and attention, the same way that if your partner or crying child came to you, you'd give them love and attention. So just channeling that inwards. And just by giving yourself that attention, that love, emotions may come up. Your breath may deepen itself, but it's just a moment to reconnect with yourself through your breath. Then practicing breathing is really powerful because you actually have a grounding tool. And when I say grounding, instead of being like really anxious and highly strung, you can slow your whole body down and feel more solid, and you can make better decisions. So, breathing in through the nose for a 4 count, maybe a pause, breathing out through the nose. And your intention is like, it feels delicious. Intention is so important. I'm not like like forcing myself to be relaxed, because if someone's an A-type personality, they'll do that, right? My intention is like, how delicious can this breath feel? And enjoy, like, oof, that is an expression of my body breathing itself, and it keeps me alive without me even thinking. That's fucking cool. The appreciation and the awe, the same way that the sun rises and sets, our body keeps itself alive. There's some innate intelligence or order that makes everything work, and that's within us. Taking a moment to appreciate that is really powerful. Yeah.
Like you pretty much just described my favorite meditation. Like this is a practice that I go through personally whenever I'm starting to feel anxious or anxiety build up. It's just simply to find somewhere quiet, to sit down, just allow myself to appreciate the environment, slowly close my eyes and just focus on the air as it passes through my nostrils. And then just give myself a little bit of love and gratitude for giving myself this time, and then slowly coming back. And it's about, it can be anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. And it's, to say it changes my state is unbelievable. Like I did it literally just before you got it.
Messaged me yet.
Yeah, and it's just like, I just jumped quickly. I started to feel a little bit anxious. My day was getting away from me from where I was at. The missus had just asked me to clean some dishes, and I'm like, oh man, I've got the podcast coming up. How am I going to fit all this in? And it's like, take 5 minutes, take 10 minutes, just sit down, meditate. All of a sudden, got back up, cleaned the dishes, the whole world's back in its perfect order, and I felt great again. I felt in love with myself, and it's a beautiful, beautiful practice. So I can.
Everyone's looking for a complicated solution, and if you're looking for a complicated solution, you're going to find a complicated solution. But if you just realize it doesn't have to be hard, it doesn't have to be hard, and that's the thing, because our mind determines what we notice, what we focus on, how we feel. Get rid of the idea that it needs to be hard, and then it's going to be a lot less hard. So simplicity is key. That's why I say change one thing in your life and see. Don't make your life into chaos. Like when I get people to create focusing questions, I always add, like, let's say someone's trying to lose weight. How can I change my diet to lose weight without adding stress to my life? And the way that we use our mind is so important. How can I make this easy? How can I still have the foods that I love in my diet? Then find a solution. So how can I grow and love myself as a person without making that my entire focus? I can just focus on my breath a little bit more. And what happens, guys, there's something called anchoring. So that, when you've listened to a song at a certain event, and then whenever you listen to that song again, it makes you feel that feeling. Your brain has now associated that song with that feeling. We can begin to associate feelings with practices. So the more that we spend time consciously breathing with love and gratitude, whenever I revisit my breath now, all of a sudden there's gratitude and love infused with a conscious breath. So if things get overwhelming, Joey said he might take 5 minutes. Sometimes it can take me one breath because I've practiced it so much. I can just, fuck yeah, that feels good. Yeah, that's what. And I'm like, okay, I'm back. Okay, and that's a practice. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You could, even if you did that, all these people do all this self-development, all this stuff. I know some really happy people who are living delicious lives that don't focus on this stuff at all. They just know themselves really well. They don't know how to find their center. They don't overcomplicate it. Do they need to? No. Will adding some of that stuff in give them more improvement? Possibly, but that's another discussion. But it doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful thing to take away from this, man, is that all this way to channel from where you are now to a more connected thing with yourself. It may seem hard because of the emotions that come up, but it's not in its practice. It's a beautiful thing. It's like, rather than jumping on a bus or somewhere to get somewhere quickly, it's like walking down a country lane and just experiencing the wind blowing through the trees. It's
beautiful.
Yeah, it may take you a little longer, but again, like we said, time isn't the thing. It is just like, it's calm, it's beautiful, it's gentle, and it's there to be appreciated for what it is. And that's what this process, and not even a process, it's a horrible word.
Journey.
This journey, this
work in progress.
That's what it's all about. And that's, to be honest with you, to get deep and meaningful, that's what life is all about. It's the walk down the lane where everything is calm and breezy, as opposed to speeding through rush hour traffic. You know, that's the difference. And I think this is a beautiful way to start to wrap things up. Is, man, like, is to really appreciate that for what it is. And have you got a message that you would like to, you know, sort of solidify to really send to people that are listening to this?
Yeah, I feel like, because when you're talking about life being breezy, sometimes it will be, sometimes it won't be. Can we learn to appreciate all parts of it? The same way that we can learn to appreciate all parts of ourselves. Because once we let go of needing things to be a certain way, we can love things as they are, and that is freedom. You know, like, I went through what would seem like a horrific breakup just recently, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life because it was just another part of life. Conditional love is only loving yourself for certain behaviors, or only loving life for certain things. Practice accepting and loving it all, because you don't really have a choice. You can either suffer or you can learn to accept and love it all. And that way, even the really quote-unquote fucked up and challenging parts are just as beautiful as the breezy parts. There's no separation. And then if there's no separation, we're not trying to get anywhere, because we can appreciate all parts of it. And that's a really lovely way to be, whether in the midst of the chaos or in the tranquil, you know, beach. Both are equally as beautiful because they're both life. And once we can learn to love life as it is, everything gets a lot easier. I'm not saying I do it all the time, guys, but I do it a lot more often than a lot of people, and it makes me smile a lot. So I recommend trying it out.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, man. And, like, obviously you mentioned before that, you know, you do men's work and you hold men in this container, but I think you also mentioned you work with women as well, right?
Yep.
So it's, if somebody, like, you know, here's what we're talking about today and really resonates and wants to connect with you, how can they get in touch with you?
So Joey's got my socials. Reach out and message me and say hi. So if you resonate with, like, if you're a female and resonate with what I do, I love to be able to provide women with a safe space to receive from the masculine, because many women have wounded relationships from fathers or from past lovers or from, you know, societal expectations that men see women as objects to be sexualized, and they don't often get to receive the best that men have to offer. And I like to be able to show women what love they deserve whilst coaching them, so they can understand what a healthy male relationship can be like. So that's through a one-on-one process, and that's very intuitive. I see where it needs to go. I work alongside them. We might do a session once every 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and in between I kind of help support them through the homework and the activities, and that's very individually tailored. Same applies to men if they can't fit in with the schedule of my course, because it is a 10-week course. It has a very rigid structure, because that's how I know it needs to be for me to create the results. If guys can't do the course, I would suggest doing the course first. I think it's more powerful than my one-on-one, because being in that band of brothers with that amount of energy and that intention, the group exercises we do is so much more powerful than the one-on-one stuff. So I highly recommend the course. On my socials, my course is on my Evolved Brotherhood page, or on my personal page. It's called Step Into Manhood. And basically I studied what a modern man, you know, what beautiful attributes of a modern man can be, what problems we all face, and then how to move through that so we can meet ourselves and be the best man that we can be in a really beautiful, safe environment. I've studied a lot of the greatest minds on the planet, and from everything from my own experience, put it all together, and it's my brainchild. And I don't want to be sounding arrogant, but I have a big ass brain and I put a lot of thought into it. So it creates some incredible results. And I was too humble to admit that even 6 months ago, because I'm still going through my process as a coach to admit my worth, but I've seen it so much that I can't, it's a crime to not say how powerful it is. So the 10-week course is magic.
Yeah, and that's something I picked up on there, man, which is something I love to say. It's one of my favorite things. It was gifted to me on my bachelor party in a teepee in the middle of the forest, was that the one thing about being together as a group of people, it's what creates the common unity in community. And it's the most fucking beautiful thing I've ever heard.
I love that.
That's what's great about getting around other people that have a similar interest or are going through similar things, is you are common in the fact you are doing that, and then together as you work through it, you are unified. And that's what community is.
I love that. And, like, you know, so many of these men's circles and things are rituals that have been done for so long, and the reason we chose rituals, because although we have our beautiful uniqueness, when we have a designated set of rules and we've created a specific process, we all meet in that ritual, therefore we can connect, because we've got an agreed upon way of operating. So when we have group work and we're like, it's going to be like this and this and this, even when they're all so different, we all get to connect on that same wavelength. The same that when we all drink, we feel similar. Or if you're a stoner and you smoke weed with people, you'll feel connected. When we create something to unify, we actually feel that connection. That's why men's work or using a container deliberately can do that.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
That's beautiful, man.
What a journey. What a journey.
Joel, I have no idea how long we've been talking, man, but it doesn't really matter. I've absolutely loved every minute of me being sat here and having this deep, meaningful conversation, man, and just having a good yarn and sharing our opinions. It's been beautiful, dude. I'd love to welcome you back on the show anytime you want. If you ever want to talk again, you're always welcome. But thank you, man.
Tomorrow, let's book it in.
Let's do it again.
We'll be even more naked.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much, bro. It's been a pleasure, and I wish you all the best with your coaching. And if you do want to get in touch with Joel, he's available for contact on at Evolved Brotherhood on Instagram, or if you just type into Google or to Facebook Joel Stoyanis, you'll be able to find his socials there, and you can get in touch with him that way.
Yeah, but Instagram and Facebook. Yeah,
beautiful. Thanks again for listening, guys. Joel, absolute pleasure, man, and we'll definitely catch up again soon.
Yeah, what a journey. Fuck yeah. Thank you, brother. That was sick.
Thank you guys for listening to this episode of Naked Reality, and a massive show of gratitude to our guests who got naked about their mental health stories today in the studio with us. Also, a big thanks to our sponsor here for 2020 and 2021, getsome.com.au, providing some amazing supplements from Origin Labs all the way in the USA and supporting our military veterans. Stay tuned for this important announcement. For anyone listening that's in need of any support for any reasons for their mental health, please contact Beyond Blue on 1300 224636. Or for the ages of 12 and 25 years old, Headspaces at 1-800 650 890. Or for the ages of 5 to 25, Kids Helpline on 1-800-55-1800. Or if you're in need of any immediate support, please contact Lifeline on 131114, and they're available 24/7 for those in Australia. If you are looking for any more numbers, if you can visit healthdirect.gov.au/mental health lines. There's a lot of numbers there for specific topics. And also on our website is ONU, that's o-nu.com.au/mental-health-support-lines. We have a list of phone numbers and contact details for many of the main areas around the world. If you are in need of any support, or you do know someone that this would benefit, please share this around to anyone you think may need it. Thank you.